One.
afternoon, everyone.
I request Ms. Ranjana Maitra to start with the proceedings. Over to you, Ranjana.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back again. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the second day, second half of the 6th edition of CII Western Region India Women Network WomeNation Summit Rising Again. We are going to start with the session celebrating those who made a difference. Ms. Preeti Reddy is going to be chairing this session. May I request Ms. Reddy to turn on her video, please? Thank you. Preeti doesn't need any introduction, but I'll still say a few lines about her. Preeti is chairwoman of Kantar South Asia Insights Division. She has over 3 to 4 decades, I think it's 4 decades now, of experience in consumer marketing, research, and consulting over a gamut of industries: FMCG, durables, retail and services, and many others. Previously, Preeti has been CEO of Kantar LMRB in Sri Lanka. Preeti holds an honors degree in economics from the reputed Delhi University and an MBA from XLRI. Great achievements. Every year for the last 5 years, Preeti has been chosen from over 500 women professionals across the industry as one of Impact's 50 most influential women professionals in India media, marketing, and advertising. Currently, she's chairperson of CII Western Region India Women Network and is a great inspiration for all of us. I warmly welcome Preeti and invite her to start the session. Thank you, Preeti. Over to you.
Thank you, Ranjana. It's always embarrassing to hear somebody talk about you like this. But I'm particularly happy to be chairing this particular session because for the first time, IWIN has decided to felicitate women and organizations who have made a significant difference to women, either through business practices, through organizational goals, or through social development. This felicitation is being done in collaboration with Kantar, where I work. Kantar is the world's leading evidence-based insights and consulting company. It has a complete, unique, and rounded understanding of how people think, feel, act, globally and locally in over 90 markets. By combining the deep expertise of our people, our data resources, and our benchmarks, our innovative analytics and technology, Kantar helps clients understand people and inspire growth. Quite apart from this, Kantar is also deeply committed to a more equal world and is working towards this through its various I&D efforts and its CSR efforts. Sampada, could you please play the video on Kantar, the short video that we have?
Sure.
Throughout our 75-year history, we have been pioneers in understanding people and adopting new technologies to help us do that. The first to use facial recognition in advertising testing. The first to use people meters to measure TV audiences. The first to migrate to online interviewing. New technology today comes in different forms, from biodata and biometrics in healthcare to capturing human sentiment and even voting intentions by analyzing social media, in using telemetry to enhance our understanding of customer experiences, piloting apps to measure out-of-home consumption, deploying audio recognition to measure media consumption on multiple devices, and most dramatically perhaps in exploiting big data, artificial intelligence and analytics to enable us to predict attitudes and behavior. But ours is a business where we use technology and data in pursuit of a goal: to inspire our clients, our people and society to create and flourish in an extraordinary world. And in doing so, some things won't change. Asking the right questions, listening hard, understanding better than anyone else the way people live, think, feel, vote, shop, watch and post. The desire to understand human needs and motivations has been around for centuries and will continue to define our purpose in the years to come.
Thank you, Sampada. The theme for this year's felicitations is She the Nurturer. We laud women and we praise organizations for many attributes related to business success and business leadership. But this time we wanted to felicitate those who have displayed extraordinary compassion and empathy in particularly challenging times. They have emerged stronger, they have become exemplary in their fields, and in the process, they have set an example for others. We will felicitate them under three categories. One, Compassionate Woman of the Year, an individual
Ranjana, I'm not able to hear Preeti. Is that just for me?
Preeti, we've lost you, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really?
Yes.
Why is that?
You're back, Preeti. You can carry on.
I'm back. Where did you
Yes,
lose
you're back.
me?
You can.
Where did you lose me?
When you were just about to announce the categories.
Oh, okay. So I said we will felicitate them under three categories. Compassionate Woman of the Year, an individual who has faced challenges and is compassionate and motivated to work for others. Women Nurturing Social Enterprise of the Year, a social enterprise that has worked for women's empowerment, and the Women Nurturing Corporate Organization of the Year, a corporate organization that has continuously supported the ambitions of their women employees. So in the first category, Compassionate Woman of the Year, we are felicitating Barkha Dutt. Barkha was the first journalist to highlight the migrant plight during the first wave of COVID. She traveled across the length and breadth of the country to capture stories of the pandemic. She took unfathomable risks, an appetite for which she seems to have demonstrated earlier in her, in her covering the Kargil War 22 years ago. During the second wave, she actually had to endure personal tragedy close to home with the loss of her father to COVID. And yet she relentlessly covered the second wave. This time, much more morbidly, she visited mortuaries and provided a sense of the magnitude of the loss that we have endured. She has been a trendsetter in journalism with a bootstrapped venture, Mojo Story, going where major TV studios wouldn't venture into initially. She is truly an inspiration. And she couldn't be here with us today, but she has a message for us. Sampada, please pay the message.
Hi everyone, to Ranjana and all the wonderful women at the CII Summit. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in person, but I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart how much it means to me to be recognized and honored for compassion. Compassion is often considered a soft skill, but I would actually argue that compassion is at the heart of journalism, it's at the heart of storytelling, it's at the heart of being humans. If we cannot connect with other people and feel what they're feeling, then what good are we and why are we even doing this? So what I want to say is that, I've been recognized for so many things in my life, for courage, for, my language skills, for my interviews. And perhaps this is the first time that I actually think I've been recognized for what is most valuable to me, which I believe to be my empathy. So this means the world to me, and I thank CII for thinking of me, and I'd also like to thank and congratulate all the other brilliant women who've been honored today. Thank you so much. God bless.
That was truly an inspirational message. In the second category, Women Nurturing Social Enterprise of the Year, we are felicitating Seva, who is represented here today by Reena Nanavati. Reena, could we have your video on, please? Seva, the Self-Employed Women's Association, promotes the rights of low-income and independently employed female workers, approximately 5 million of them. And they have focused on protecting us and its members from the health and economic impact of COVID-19. They do many other things, but this year, I think COVID has been foremost for all of us. Seva members have sewn masks, they've organized PPE kits, they've packaged dry snacks for people in lockdown. When Seva's community leaders began to wear these masks and distribute them in Indian villages where they are based, proper usage increased from 23% to 62% as per Reena. Community leaders are now being mobilized to address vaccine hesitancy. Seva has worked in partnership with 3 state governments to set up COVID-19 task forces as steered by Niti Aayog. As a trusted community-based organization, Seva helps address the last mile and hardest to serve communities in combating the pandemic. This is only a small piece of what they do, I know, but may I ask Reena Nanavati to please say a few words to us.
Namaste, thank you very much, and it is indeed a privilege to be felicitated. This felicitation goes to the 1.9 million members of Seva, all poor women workers contributing enormously to our economy. And I think in these uncertain times, this felicitation is extremely reassuring, and I am very, very honored, and it's a real privilege for us as well. Normally, when there is a disaster, we would rush to our members, be with them, listen to what their sufferings are, what the effect of it. But you know, this was a very unusual kind of a disaster where you cannot go out of your homes. You were confined to our homes. There's so much of uncertainty. And I think that is where, everybody had to really readjust and repurpose to this situation. Our members were feeling very helpless, but not hopeless. And as Preeti ji, you were saying that, I think when women have work in their hands, they are able to cope with the situation. And that's where they started making masks, started making dry snacks, paper bags, distributing in the villages. And also, we were all anticipating that one day all the women of Seva would also start using the digital technology, but it came there and bang, you had to be on a virtual world. And I'm very happy to say that, how do you turn an adversity into an opportunity? That is what we learned from our members. Today we have, 10 lakh women using WhatsApp, WhatsApp Pay, WhatsApp for market business. Women use the Zoom platform, the WebEx platform, the Google Meet for their virtual meetings, for their virtual trainings, and digital platforms for their marketing. That enabled, their enterprises, their social enterprises to scale up. They became very relevant. And the lesson that came out was that local decentralized supply chains work far more efficiently than, the global and the national supply chains. And lo and behold, while we were just still getting adjusted to the pandemic, there was a cyclone in Gujarat. And, that was another disaster that came. And then while we were still coming to terms, we had the second wave of COVID, which spread like wildfire. So the women are now managing COVID care centers. They use oxygen concentrators as mobile, health workers. So taking concentrators to the villages till the patient is reaching the hospital. And then now we have our crisis in Afghanistan. But as I was saying, that, no crisis deterrs us because I think the social enterprises just don't have triple bottom lines, but it also, empowers the women, gives them economic security. And as you were saying, it builds a nurturing economy. How do you nurture each other? How do you build sisterhood and solidarity? So thank you so much. I really appreciate this felicitation to the millions of poor women workers who are contributing to our economy through their social enterprises. Thank you, Preeti ji, Asha ji, and all the sisters here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rima, and please do convey our sincere appreciation to all your millions of Seva women. They are truly an inspiration for all of us. And finally, the third category, Women Nurturing Organization, Corporate Organization of the Year. We are felicitating Accenture, represented here by Charulata Ravikumar, Managing Director of Accenture Operations. Charulata, have your video on. Accenture has been and continues to be at the forefront of inclusion and diversity in India. Their success is evident through the market-leading policies, practices, programs, and benefits that they extend to their people. The company's impact on shaping the I&D discourse, particularly focused on equality for all, is a testament to its culture within, creating an environment where everyone feels they have an equal opportunity to belong and build a career, perform at their very best, and unleash innovation. Their focus and commitment towards accelerating gender equality and nurturing a safe space for women, where everyone can grow, develop, and achieve fulfilling careers, is truly unparalleled and remarkable. So it is with great pleasure that I invite Charulata to say a few words and accept this citation and trophy on behalf of Accenture.
Thank you, Preeti. Firstly, I hope I'm audible, but firstly, it's amazing to share screen. I wish I'd said share stage, but share screen with Preeti, Barkar, Rima, and all the women of CII who've been relentlessly working towards nurturing and compassionate leadership to impact the lives of so many women. So on behalf of Accenture, I would like to thank you all and the CII Western region for this honor and recognition of our efforts in creating a culture of equality where all our employees, regardless of their gender, orientation, or physical abilities, can thrive, feel proud, feel connected, and feel as one with the organization and the teams. At Accenture, we believe this cannot be a program. It has to be a part of the DNA. It cannot remain an awareness. It has to translate to meaningful actions. I just want to kind of draw some parallels to what we're doing and the initiatives that we have within Accenture to be able to enable this. We have an unwavering commitment to a culture of equality, right? And we have set ourselves very bold goals to accelerate gender equality as well. We're promoting women at all stages of their careers, right? And investing in targeted support, flexible work arrangements, and comprehensive training programs to help women thrive at Accenture. We're also advancing gender equality in the workplace by conducting annual global research and convening conversations to raise awareness and encourage that action, that meaningful action that I was talking about. So let me share some data that will probably set you thinking a little bit, right? Recent Accenture research shows us that the unequal impact of COVID-19 could set the timeline to gender equality back by 51 years, right, to 2071, really, on current trends, right? And women's earnings have fallen 63% faster than men's. In order to balance gender inequalities in the workplace, organizations need to focus even more on workplace inclusion in which women can thrive and advance. So allow me to also share areas where we have our focus sharply set to be able to ensure that the focus and the target we've set ourselves is achieved. At Accenture, we have set our goals to accelerate gender equality and how we are working to achieve a gender-balanced workforce by 2025. That's been a bold step forward. This means a workforce that is equally 50% women and 50% men. We currently employ more than 250,000 women globally. Women represent 46% of our global workforce. And today, 25% of all management positions are held by women, and 49% of new hires are women. We're also creating a culture of equality where women at all career levels can advance and thrive, which is really important. Global trend of nearly 40% drops at mid levels of the career has only become much more since COVID struck us, right? More people, more women are coming out of the workforce at the most critical junctures where they need to advance forward. And now we see that across industries, across levels also, for reasons not always one of choice. So our bold market-leading programs focused on attracting people from diverse backgrounds, reinforcing our commitment to equal and inclusive hiring practices as well. For example, our inclusive internship program that provides on-the-job learning opportunities to people, persons with disabilities, transgender people, women from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, etc. And developing and growing our women. Our talent and development programs are targeted at building a pipeline of women talent at mid, senior, and leadership career levels, right? And so we know that those who join us have a continuing career path with Accenture, who we groom and grow to take on fulfilling careers with us. We are invested strongly in growing our women at all levels as they receive access to a network of leaders, alongside the opportunity to acquire new skills through on-the-job learning, rotational assignments, coaching, mentoring, skill building sessions, career intentionality workshops, right? Which ensures that they understand the path they need to take. We've also fostered a very safe and nurturing environment for our women through market-leading benefits and policies like the Returning Mother Program, virtual parental benefits. India has also a Vahini network where we are connected, and Women's Safety Council. These programs, these are only some of them that I just mentioned, but several more. And these programs also work toward helping them close the experience gap that they would have faced during these break years, which is very important for them to be integrated well into the workforce and have an equal ground. So just in closing, I would like to emphasize that a workplace culture of equality, the same kind of workplace environment that helps women advance to higher positions, is a powerful multiplier of innovation and growth. And in workplaces where women rise, men are twice as likely to rise. And we want to bring the equality of nurturing and success to our people in equal measure. I will hand this back to you, Preeti. Thank you once again for the recognition, and thank you once again for making us part of this entire journey with CII.
Thank you, Charulata, and we're hoping that by felicitating organizations like yours and like Seva and individuals like Barkha, we will actually spread the good word to say that it is possible to make a difference and we should all work towards it. I'll end just by saying that, these last 2 years have actually shown us that we all have amazing fonts of strength within us, which we ourselves don't know. And the individuals and organizations we have felicitated have demonstrated that. And I would like to end by quoting a few lines from a poet, Jane Hirschfield, that I think actually expresses that sentiment beautifully. I quote, "The world asks of us only the strength we have, and we give it. Then it asks more, and we give it." Thank you, Barkha. Thank you, Rima. And thank you, Charulata. Over to you, Sona.
Thank you so much, Preeti. I hope I am audible. Yeah, thank you so much, Preeti, for moderating this session. And I would like to congratulate all the winners for this recognition. And now we have another session. It's called How to Develop and Promote Personal Branding. So I would like to request all the panelists to please start their video. And I would like to briefly introduce Sheetal. She's the session moderator for this session. Sheetal is currently serving like IWN Goa chapter. She's the chairperson for that. She has done diploma in textile designing and development from Rachna Sansad, Mumbai. She is a bachelor in dress designing and manufacturing from Sophia College, Mumbai. She was the part of Rotary Group study exchange student to visit Brazil from 1999. She is a founder of HOD Dress Designing and Making the Cyber College of Non-Conventional Courses for Women, Kolhapur from 1994 to 1999. She is also a visiting faculty with Government Polytechnic, Panji from 1999 till date. Currently, Sheetal is a director as Acquisite Composite Private Limited, Goa Manufacturing Composite. Please, Sheetal, I would like to welcome you for the moderating this session.
Thank you, Sonal.
Over to you.
Thank you, Sonal. And let us begin with our panel discussion on how to develop and promote personal branding. I welcome all my guests. Just before we start, let's begin with, have you ever wondered why certain individuals in your field rise out of nowhere and gain prominence? They get all the media attention and they deliver keynote addresses at top conferences and attract the best clients. Are these men and women just smarter than the rest of us, or are they privy to some kind of magical personal branding strategy that the rest of us do not know about? So today I'm going to let you get the secret by talking to the experts here. Let me start introducing them. My first panelist is Sheetal Kakkar Mehra. She needs no introduction, but yet let me just talk about her. Sheetal is India's leading executive presence coach for CEOs. With over 20 years of experience, she has personally trained over 50,000 professionals across Asia, including numerous CEOs from leading multinationals and progressive domestic companies. Her reputation as cutting-edge experts come from her in-depth knowledge and her unique way she blends the Indian corporate ethos with global best-in-class practices. Sheetal has conducted workshops for a diverse set of organizations across Asia and has been a guest speaker by leading management institutes and associations. She is an acclaimed public speaker and best-selling author. Her first book, Business Etiquettes, a Guide for the Indian Professional, and a second book, Executive Presence, The Poise Formula for Leadership, have been declared bestsellers. She is an active philanthropist and is the co-founder of Catalyst, an NGO for underprivileged girls. She's also the founder of Go Barefoot, a professional networking platform for developing professionals. Hi, Sheetal. I welcome you for this panel discussion. Our second panelist is Meera Swaroop. Meera is an army child who uses the charm of the olive greens to help people create an impactful first impression that lasts. Being a coach and a speaker from Impact Communications and Executive Presence, Meera helps professionals achieve their goals by shifting the way they communicate. She studied clinical research at Cranfield University and has led a career in healthcare for over 10 years in companies like Johnson & Johnson and Evigen Health. 9 years ago, she discovered her passion for personifying people, and since then she has led workshops on executive presence, likability, difficult conversations. Her clients include BCG, KPMG, Coca-Cola, and eBay. Her flagship course called Impact Communications runs successfully in batches that last for 10 weeks. People experience being reformed in their attitude and behavior while choosing the choicest of words to communicate that matters. Meera aims to simplify communications for people in a way that allows borders to dissolve and communities to thrive. Welcome, Meera. Look forward to hearing from you on impactful communication.
Likewise, thank you.
Our third panelist is Sajan Murli Purvangara, passionate leader and speaker who believes in walking the talk, keen observer on the corporate developments globally, and believes in voicing the opinion and standing for the right cause. He believes in building a self-value system and principles, which thus forms the underlying foundation for every action. Currently Executive Director and Country Manager Turtle Wax, India and South Asia, world's leading car care brand focused on building and scaling up the India subsidiary ground up. author of the book, The Changing World of Sales. UCLA Anderson, PGPX graduate with 2 decades of leadership experience in sales, marketing, operations, and experience with Fortune 100 companies. A regular guest speaker in top-tier management schools, offline and online mentor, and a permanent academic board member with VJIM Hyderabad. And the list goes on and on. I can just go on with it, but I think I would like to start off, welcome you all, and let's begin with this session today on how to develop and promote personal branding. So let me start by asking you that personal branding is each one's story. So what is your story? Let us start with your story. Sheetal, could you take us through your story?
Thank you. My journey started in 1999 when India looked very different. You know, the liberalization reforms that had started in the early 90s started to bear fruit. And here I was teaching skills that a lot of corporate India could not, relate to. So they couldn't understand the importance of it. But the good news was that within a couple of years, I think India did arrive on the world stage. So our professionals started traveling, communicating, interacting, and negotiating with people across the world. So that led to a situation where our professionals needed to upgrade these skills. Also, multinational companies felt that India was a destination that they needed to make investments in. And they set up shop here, and a lot of professionals, due to matrix reporting, had bosses in different parts of the world. So it worked both ways. So that's where the journey started. Come 2020, I realized that India was a mature market. And yes, we had learned the basics, but we now needed to move to the next level. Whether it was taking feedback, giving feedback, cross-cultural, cross-border communication, interacting and creating impact. So I would say that's step 2. And of course, 3 now to come 2020, I researched extensively and realized that, as a country, we needed to have our own understanding of executive presence. And that led me to a proprietary formula, India's first, called the Poise Formula for Executive Presence, because I felt that lots of books on the subject were all written by foreign authors who had possibly never visited the country. So that's where my journey, and I would divide it into 3 steps: the start, the midpoint, and yes, today.
Okay, thank you, Sheetal. Nice to hear from you about it. Meera, how about you? Would you like to share your journey?
Sure. Thank you, Sheetal, for asking. And it's wonderful to hear Sheetal's journey before that. It's absolutely inspiring. I started off my journey thanks to being an army brat. So I give a lot of credit to being brought up in an environment where you're just surrounded by defense personnel. My parents were in the army. My father was in the army. My grandparents were in the army. And that environment, to a significant effect, shaped me today. And that's precisely where I give the credit to what I do today. I didn't have a lot of clarity, but a lot of growing up was 9 schools, 16 years of education, traveled all over the country, really blessed to live that life. While still figuring things out, I did my bachelor's in biotechnology, master's in clinical research, carried a journey in healthcare, helping research on drugs that could be taken to the market sooner. While on that journey, thinking this is what I was meant to do, and then discovering the universe had something else in mind. And getting that thunderbolt hit you, a conversation that came so alive that said, you're good at what you do, and yet you realize all your past accomplishments, all the great efforts you've put in, all the beautiful image that you've built isn't sufficient for you to have influence in a room. To experience that bang on, where, it's like losing the opportunity on a job, not knowing how to head forward, experiencing that yourself, even though you had so much of great work to back up on, really gave me the indication, the sign from the universe, hey, there are a lot more like you. What do you want to do about it? And that's why I now lead a program that's dedicated to a set of individuals who are already quite accomplished. They're in that space where they've done their bit. They're the masters of their subject. They've gone out there and outperformed beyond people's expectations. And yet they experience a glass ceiling, which isn't limited to the women folk only, but they experience a glass ceiling. What can we do to introduce them to how they can enhance their impact and presence by shifting the way they communicate, by shifting the way they present themselves, by shifting the conversation they hold about their own self? And that's where my journey goes. Thank you for asking, Sheila.
Thank you. We will definitely get back to you and hear more from you about the impactful communications. Over to you, Sajjan. Can we hear from you?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks, Shita. So, I just wanted to talk about my journey with a small story. About 20 years back, after my MBA, I traveled to Bangalore on a day bus, I remember, from Bangalore, and I was supposed to join a company a week later. And I landed in Bangalore that evening. It was September 11th, 2001. And in the evening, I went to an internet cafe to just take my CV printout. And there was a lot of buzz around that internet cafe. And then I realized that the 9/11 had happened. And my offer got revoked in a week. So from my first offer, I finally landed in a BPO job. That's where I started, right? And of course, things changed, and this Asian Paints was my first, so to say, the professional career beginning. And then much water has flown under the bridge since. I've been on the automotive side after Asian Paints. I worked with Shell for about 7 years. In Shell, the interesting journey is I started with sales. I did a lot of core roles, and then I did a learning role there. And then I kept on moving. In 2015, I upgraded myself by doing a UCLA Anderson MBA. And then I started moving up my career. Finally, I'm currently the executive director for Turtlewax, which is a 75-year-old firm. What I wanted to say is, one, my journey has been nothing short of an adventure. The second thing is, I always feel what Richard Branson says: if you're being offered a job, and if you're not sure about it, take it and then make it work. That's some principle I've always followed, because I always feel we have this inherent strength in ourselves to make things work. It is just that you have to grab it and just make things work. That's been something which I've been following. Last but not the least, just we are on the women's forum, and I realized that not many men are there. So I also wanted to say that, I'm proud to say that 60% of my sales team is women. And it's not by default, it is by design. And they're really doing well in the firm. I'm really proud that they're keeping the flag very, very high. So thank you.
Thank you, Sajjan. We take it and make it work. I think that really sounds good. And also congratulations. We will have more to talk to you, because you will have much more experience with almost 60 to 70% of women around you. So you will have lots more to give in to us. So let's get to branding is what companies stand for. So do you believe this? And how do you implement this when it comes to personal branding? Sheetal, would you like to take it up?
Companies understand branding. They spend millions of dollars every year on packaging, on analyzing, on understanding their customers. So they completely understand branding. I feel it should extend to the person as well. And that is not a new concept. In fact, it started in the mid 90s. But I think the good news is that in the last few years, everybody seems to have understood the importance of personal branding. And I think that is the link that needs to be made. In fact, I would say the rules are the same. You are the CEO of your personal brand. Corporate brands work on three principles. They need visibility, they need promotion, and they also need investment. The same three rules apply for personal branding as well. You need visibility, you need promotion, and you also need to make investments in yourself. And that the payback is several times over, whether it is in your networks or it is even in your reputation management. I mean, if you make a personal connect with CEOs, a company CEO connect, It has clearly shown that 45% of companies' reputation hinges on the reputation of the CEO. So it works at both the levels.
Yes. Sachin, would you want to add into this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I always feel if any branding, it's personal branding or a product branding, finally, it's a brand kind of has certain values attached to it. And that's what consumer or a person who's attached to you associate you for, right? Finally, brand is an invisible thing, but it has a lot of values attached to it. And that is what brings the soul of the brand. It's the same thing with personal branding. Personal branding, I strongly feel consistency and the values you actually exhibit every time you talk about yourself, every time you do something about yourself. I think that is what finally will land up at the consumer, and then they will create an impression around you on the values you actually and the aura you create around you. And that is extremely crucial. And this, which is why I strongly feel every principle, almost every principle you follow in creating a product branding is applicable, maybe in a very different way, but the fundamentals remain pretty same, because it's about what message are you conveying about a brand, what are the values you stand for, all of this, what this brand stands for, what is the consistency, what's the lineage, what's the heritage as a person you bring to the table. All of this very, very akin and kind of reflects very well with both of these aspects. So I strongly feel that it's just that you'll have to do probably a little different. The other first thing is that. Second thing is, from a product branding to a personal branding, the use of technology, the online and those spaces which is available today. Maybe those things, the kind of usage you do, the kind of media and channels you use could be different, but the principle and fundamentals of both the branding kind of remain same, and is extremely relevant that every person who kind of either started a career or at a mid-career or then or kind of going to the next level of a career should really express themselves, what they stand for, and create definitely a personal brand around them. That's what I feel, Sheetal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sachin. Meera, what would you like to add into this?
Sheetal, the speakers here said their bit, and I think it's beautiful. I'd like to round it off with the personal experience that I saw. There was a CEO of an organization that made a product, and a product that everybody uses on a very regular basis. But I love how he built a beautiful story around his employees. I would see almost every week the CEO choosing a Wednesday to go dine with one of his employees. This employee could be from any band. It didn't particularly have to be from the band that he belongs to. It could have been from any band. It could have been the head of the department, or it could have been the head of a particular protocol. But the person chooses to have lunch with them, and over lunch he catches up, understands their personal story, and then right after that there's a post with a little photograph of him and that employee, and saying, "What an amazing lunch! My takeaways, what I loved about her or his journey, and when I asked her why she works with us, this is what she said." That got such fantastic attention. I was really wondering, is he building his personal brand? Is he building her personal brand? Or is he building the organization's brand? Or is he just magically creating it for everyone? That's what I'd like to share.
That's nice. That's really nice. Something to learn from. Sajjan just mentioned something like, creating your aura or creating a buzz. So let's talk about, we're talking about personal branding and how do we create or how do we develop it? So how do you create this buzz, and what are your tips on development of your personal brand? Sajjan, could we start with you?
Absolutely, Sheetal. So, as I said, it could differ from people to people. So I'm here to share my personal experience. I strongly feel, the first thing, of course, this whole starting point is doing a fair endoscopy of yourself, really put a light into your whole soul and understand what you stand for, because that's genuine. It's not about, it's actually important that you really talk about what you stand for, or not necessarily what others feel you stand for. right? So I think the first thing is really reflecting yourself and get into a little bit of understanding of yourself first. I know it sounds a little philosophical, but that's where it starts. I strongly feel, the whole idea is you have, of course, everybody has a strength and weakness. So what I do personally is I make sure my strength is fairly heard and it's quite loud. My weaknesses, of course, are not so loud. And the other most important point of endoscopy is I feel, you know your weakness more than anything else, more than anybody else, right? So what happens typically, I'll just give you a typical example that when I sit with my manager for a review, all through 10 years, my area of improvement is never a conflict, because I know he's only saying 50% of what I know of myself of area of improvement. So I don't really debate because I know exactly what it is. And the same way, my review and the strength side is also not really been never a conflict, because I have already exhibited my strength strongly in the last 1 year, and I know it will come out from that person. So I think that's about it. That's knowing that these are things which you're not sure about, and knowing that these are which you're very sure about, and making that aura around the strength which you have, and making that as your aura, so to say, I think is more genuine, and that is there to stay. And being consistently working around those, I think, is the key. This is my personal experience. Thanks, Sheetal.
Yeah, I like that statement where you said a fair endoscopy of yourself. I think that makes it, and that puts it up into the right perspective that what one needs to do. Meera, could you add in about how do you create the buzz? I mean, especially with your impact for communications, if you would like to talk a little about that, and also about trying to create the aura around.
Right, right. So Sheetal, when we're talking about creating an aura and how Sajjan just spoke of how one develops that, what was coming to my mind is a very strong part of a personal branding person's aura is a value called contributor. It's a very major pillar for anybody who's wanting to build personal brand. One of the myths that we carry in personal branding is all about me, 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 me. But if through all the messages that you're sending out with the intention of building a personal brand, could a good 60 to 70%, if more amazing, but good 60 to 70%, could it be about you contributing to the audience where you're adding value? When we talk about creating a buzz can be amazing. You could be the piece of news. You could be the one who's had an amazing experience, and that's fantastic. The question is, when you're sharing an amazing experience, could there be a learning, a practical opportunity for the other person to think differently, feel differently, imagine a different world, imagine themselves taking a similar action, producing different outcomes? In what way can our messaging be so tailored such that the other person feels served? That would really help build what we call as the buzz around personal branding. So contribution and value addition through your brand. That's what I'd recommend.
Okay, so we take it as what you said as the value called contributor, and you also talked about the myth. We are coming back to speak more in detail about the myth. Before I would like to hear Sheetal, what would she have to say about creating the buzz? How do you create the buzz? And also, Sheetal, I would like to ask you that when it comes to while creating the buzz, is it only that you approach it in one particular way, for especially when you're talking about a different level?
Yes. First of all, I think authenticity matters. So I think it's very important to be who you are, whether online or offline, in person or on a screen. So first of all, understanding who you are and being authentic and being your authentic self is very important, because after a point, it'll all fall through and it can't be consistent. Secondly, I feel that you have to have a niche. It's very important. It may take you a while to find that niche, but you have to have that, because that's when you really add value, and you have to be cutting edge. So many times I see a lot of buzz, a lot of over communication, but it's the same content that has been created many times over. So when I was defining my personal brand, decided that I'm going to provide cutting edge content to my audience, whether in a workshop or in a coaching engagement or just generally public out there in terms of articles. So that is also important. And another thing which I practice is that you have to be creative. The world is changing very fast, and working with a personal brand is like working with a moving target. So you have to be ready to constantly learn, unlearn, relearn, and reinvent yourself. So that is one thing that I have seen in this journey.
Good. So I take it as you say, that be creative and a constant learning which you need to. So let's talk about what was it when you started, or what did you know that you wanted to be known for, or also forecasting, where you would like to see yourself 5 to 10 years, or and the attributes that you would want to be known for.
I don't think it comes initially. So when you start your journey, even you are trying to find yourself. And I was very young at that time. This was a new industry. I had decided that I'm going to meet in one calendar year 200 HR heads and CEOs. So you can imagine it was almost like a revolving door, my office. So that was a journey, and that's where it started. And it took me a while to understand that what is my personal brand, what am I trying to communicate, and it is a process, and honestly it will keep changing over the years to come. So initially it was just basic skills that people needed to communicate in a global world. Then it moved to cross border communication, cross culture, interacting, and a lot of other skills. Today it is actually helping leaders reach their maximizing their potential, helping them put their best foot forward, helping them present the best version to the world and their audience. And there are so many stakeholders. So that is where it is at. So I would say it's constantly changing, evolving, and we are all work in progress. That's the way I look at it.
Sachin, do you agree to this? And also, I would like to know, 5 years ago and now, present, and 5 years from today, how do you look at it?
Yeah, I agree to Sheetal. And in fact, I wanted to, since, as I said, I started from a pure sales career, back then when we all started, there was nothing called a self-branding for people who just started, right? Your job is only to build a brand for your boss. Everybody builds a brand around your boss. That's where it started. I'm being as candid as I can, but that was the truth. But then things evolved, and millennials and all of the whole development in the last 5 years or so, things have completely evolved, and we know it's about your personal branding, and there are many spaces you can open up and build your brand. Back then, 20 years back, you didn't have. Your boss was the only person whom you could talk to. There was no other place where you could even talk about what you could bring to the table. And if he decides yes, you could, you are you cannot. You're just suppressed. That's a journey, right? It started off from there to a journey where today my employees come to me and say, look, these are the things which I would want to do. These are the things which I don't want to do. And it's becoming expressive. I'm seeing that whole generation changing. I have my girls who I read just after the college, 2 people who have spent 15, 20 years of experience. I clearly see that experience. And I think they all now very clearly exhibit what values they stand for, what they can do, what they can't do, and stuff like that. So their brand comes out very, very apparently. Personal branding just comes out because they're quite expressive in their nature. So that's the change I've seen in the last two decades or so. From a personal experience, 5 years back, if you have looked at me as a person, I never thought that I would need to really push myself to spend some time, not about creating a brand or so, but at least expressing yourself, at least let people know what you stand for and stuff like that. Because now I realize that at a certain position, it is extremely important that people should know what you stand for. And as a leader, when you keep going up and if people start following you, I think they will follow you for the values you actually create and exhibit to them, or values they think they can learn from you. So it's important that you kind of express this. That is the realization I've had. Like 5 years back, I would not have thought about writing a book or talking, talking these platforms, or going to an MBA college and talking about. Now I realize it's important because that's where you express yourself. So I think that from a pure expressive point of view, I think I've traveled a journey. I know next 5 years is going to be completely different. So I think it's about every year you reinvent yourself and embrace new technologies. Like for example, a Clubhouse is something which has just come up last 6 months back. It's a very, very different way of expressing your opinion, and it's a very, very novel medium to actually interact with people, and very, very neutral medium, so to say. So I'm just trying to say what I think what is in hold or what is coming up, we don't know, but I'm sure this whole space is going to change very differently, and people who embrace it as fast as they can would be the first winners or first gainers in those stands. And I'm very sure I'm going to learn a lot of things from the new team, from the young team, and your job is just keep unlearning and relearning yourself. So totally. I think nothing short of an adventure for next 5 years too. Thank you.
Absolutely agree that when you say that, for people to know that what you feel and what you stand for, and completely reinventing and reprocessing and learning. Meera, would you like to add in anything to this?
I'd love to. Thank you for asking. So I heard Sheetal say authenticity. I heard Sarjan say keep relearning. And what do you stand for? Now, I'm sharing from experience. When I'm coaching participants to help enhance their executive presence, we work on their personal branding. And when we ask them this question, go deep inside, ask yourselves, what do you stand for? It takes a while to distinguish that. So something that I would like to give, something very tangible for all our audience who are watching us today and wanting to start to work on their personal brand. 3 simple questions you want to ask yourself. What is the subject I want to be known for? What is the master of? Which craft am I a master of? Which is the subject that I'm unabashed? Anybody sits and says, hey, what's really happening here? I could go talk about it. So what subject do you want to be a master of? What skill am I so confident I am a master of? Now that skill could be a soft skill, like your people skills or your communication or your presentation skills, or it could be a hard skill where you're the master of Excel or any other digital platform. But there's a very clear skill that you are a master of. And the third being, what is the value or characteristic about yourself that you want the world to know? So I'll give you like a liner that helps everybody. A subject, for instance, sharing about myself, a subject that I call myself an expert in, I don't call a master yet, but an expert in is communication and executive presence. And I lead a impact communication program, all with the intention that I help others and be able to evolve myself in the process. What is the skill that I'm a master of, or something that I excel in? It is presentation and communication at the same time. When I'm talking about characteristic, now the characteristic could be very different. You ask people to say, hey, what is the value that you want the world to know? So some people say, I want to be known as a hardworking person, or I want to be known as a leader. All of this could evolve. But I invite you to go deeper inside and ask yourself, what do you really want to be known for? And you have some fantastic things coming out. Like you want to be known as courageous. You want to be known as bold. You want to be known as much as you want to be known as the Muffat who calls a spade a spade. If that's what you want to be known as, well, then put it out there. And then if these 3 things you begin to see a little clearly, a path opens up. What's your message? What are you going to talk about? Which books are you going to talk about? Which shows are you going to talk about? What are you going to be recognized by? It becomes so much easier to identify. Thank you.
I like that statement. What are you going to be recognized for or by? Which, on that note, let me just ask you something, that personal branding has some challenges for women. women professionals especially, it's presumed that women should be agreeable, warm, and nurturing. And when they violate these norms, to take tough decisions, to share strong opinions, or to promote themselves, they're often penalized for the behavior in a way that men wouldn't be. I can think of women who have been publicly criticized and have been called too aggressive or also labeled as ice queen. So how can you help this, or how can you help women navigate and develop a robust personal brand? Sheetal, Meera, let's start with you and then we come to Sheetal.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheetal, for letting me. So you ask a lovely question, and I'm going to answer it to my best capacity. We could either choose to present ourselves with authenticity or worry too much about what somebody thinks about our authenticity. I'm not asking for us to be honest to the effect that we be abusive towards someone, but could we understand authenticity where we are speaking about our perspective that is irrespective of any particular person? That awareness itself is very liberating. When I use the word liberating, I mean whether you're creating your whether you're creating a personal brand online or you're creating it offline, irrespective, if you begin to be known for somebody who is known for something controversial, or shall we say the kind of conversations people don't like to have on a dinner table, if you're that person who chooses a subject like that, and that has been a part of your story, whether you've been through an experience that people don't like to talk about, or you're somebody who stands for situations that people don't like to talk about, whatever that is. It could be a difficult subject. It could be about female abuse. It could be about office politics. It could be about how we don't have the same salary space. Whatever it is that you wouldn't be comfortable talking about, but if you know that you've chosen that subject, then the responsibility lies upon you to present it in a way where it still makes impact and you aren't pushed back because people raise their fingers. I think that courage probably is another pillar for personal branding. Yeah. And boldness. Back to you.
Sheetal, what would you like to add into this?
I agree. For women, the struggle is much more. It's much tougher for women leaders and women entrepreneurs. Multiple reasons how they self define themselves in the world. And the barriers could be gender stereotypes, there are cultural biases, there's leadership gap, there's a confidence gap, which is a very big problem. So I would just say, look at it in two parts. Look at it as outer and inner. Outer is your appearance, your non-verbal communication, verbal communication, your confidence. So how you present yourself to the world. Also, look inside you. Your self-image is very important. What is your vision for the future? Don't copy anyone. Be yourself, because that is a huge thing. And that, is a very tough journey that all of us have had to undertake and are still in the process of actually maybe not even completing it. But the fact is that understand your true self. You can't copy anybody. Do a simple activity. What is your personal brand if you're to define yourself? What should others say about you when you leave the room? Write down a few words that come to your mind. You may be very far away from that, but at least you now have a goal. What is your phrase? How would you define? Also, I believe women don't self promote. Men are much better at it. Men shine and women struggle when it comes to self promotion. I think it's important for women leaders to understand, or aspiring women leaders, or women who are listening and are in the audience, to understand that start moving a lot towards the word I instead of the word we. That in itself is a change in the narrative. So, just a few points on that.
Thank you, Sheetal. Sarjan, do you agree to what Sheetal just said, that, that men, men do not need to self-promote. I mean, do you feel it that way, or and it's tough. I do realize what we said, that it's tough for a woman because there are different things what Sheetal has spoken about, which Meera has added to. So do you feel that it's a similar situation that the man goes through when it comes to personal branding, or do you feel that it is also tough for him when he has to?
Yeah, I'm going to ditch my gender, but that's fine. No, I think it is much easier for men, without a doubt. I think it all is, I mean, if you ask me, fundamentally, there's a patriarchy. There's a whole concept of patriarchy, as you know. It starts from there, and things are changing, but have we got there? No, not yet. I think every woman who has come up in their life has a story to say, of many battles she has won personally and professionally, without a doubt. I don't think anyone has had that journey. I mean, men have. I mean, I'm not saying that way, but I think on a gradient, on a variant, the struggle and the whole perseverance a woman has to go through to get to where she is far more than what a man should go through. There is a whole support system around man, without a doubt. So, I mean, I must say that I would not have been here if my wife had not supported me. It need not be the case the otherwise. She definitely was the pillar behind what I am here today, because I didn't have to look at anything else, and the whole support system built around me. And did she get that? She didn't. So it's as simple as though I'm now trying at my level to give that back, but without a doubt, I think I have zero doubt on that it is definitely men just get it a lot more easier than women. Yes.
Sajan, I totally feel that if there was a voting poll right now here, you would have won all the votes for saying this, agreeing to it, and also saying that your wife is the strongest pillar. I totally feel, feeling happy to hear this coming through. Let's take the question. Let me just ask you all one thing. It's a sheer coincidence that three of my panelists who are here have authored a book. So let me start talking about Sheetal Kakkar Mehra's first book, Business Etiquettes, a guide for the Indian professional, which has sold more than 50,000 copies and has been translated into several regional languages. Her second book, The Executive Presence, The Poise Formula for Leadership, has been released and has also been taken very well. Sajan, your book, the book which was authored by you, Changing World of Sales, is also a very well noted book, and it's in the Kindle edition. And Meera is currently co-authoring a book her first book called Talk to the Lions. I mean, this is really coincidence that we have three people here who are talking about brands and who have got a book to their credit. Could we hear about, your book? Sheetal, if we could start with you about your book and about what it has, and then we take it further.
Yeah, sure. In the early 2000s, I used to contribute. I had a column in Economic Times, and I used to just contribute on a Friday column, and it was very interesting. But people would write back, and then they would say, "Why don't you write a book?" So that's how the idea came about. But I realized that writing a column is so much easier than writing a book. So it took me a while. It was a tough journey, but I did finally write my first book. Of course, it did very well, got translated into languages. But the way I look at that book is that it is going to help you transition from a classroom to a cubicle. And interestingly, B schools have it on their suggested reading, and lots of students and professionals, young professionals entering into the workforce have read the book. The second book, of course, is going to take you from the cubicle to the corner office. So what is needed to get you into that position? So that's how I would look at my two books. Yes, it was an interesting journey. The research was a fun part of it. And the wonderful comments given by industry leaders. I interviewed there are about 120 comments from industrialists to entrepreneurs to private equity partners to venture capitalists to everybody in that space, right? So across spectrum. And it was an interesting journey. And I realized that writing a book actually helps you go and do so much more research on your subject. Secondly, the world has become flat and it's become a level playing field. Now you can connect with experts from any part of the world. And the interesting bit is that people are so generous with their knowledge and their learning. So I've had wonderful conversations with people across the globe while researching for the book. So yes, it's been very interesting, intriguing, engaging, and extremely intellectually stimulating to write a book. I recommend it for everybody.
Definitely. Thank you. We'll definitely look into it and read it up. Sajan, what about you? I mean, you're changing the world of sales. Would you like to talk about a little about that?
Yeah, of course. So I wrote a book because I couldn't not write it. Not that I really wanted to write a book. This came out of a scenario which I was saying. There are two kind of people in corporate world. One are rankers and one are B school graduates, premium B school graduates, and we all know there's distinctive difference between both in the way they build their career. So I always felt the rankers, they all in the whole process of their career, they kind of fall out because there's a lot of things which goes against them, that they don't have a premium B school degree and they're not able to, they don't have people to look up to who have really risen from the ranks and stuff like that. So they kind of get curtailed, and some point of time they stop acquiring skills and they become redundant. And I strongly feel that when there's retrenchment and when people shunt people, I mean, when there's a lot of job losses, you see these people going out, and they are actually going out at their 40, mid 40s, when their kids are up for education and stuff like that. And they try to start doing themselves. And I've seen a lot of them struggling in their life, in spite of the fact that they were really good at their jobs at their prime. The first 10, 15 years, they were, terrific salespeople. But what have they lost in the process is they've actually lost to acquire, understand what is changing around them, not acquire skills and up themselves. So just this scenario pushed myself to write that book. And, if the rankers could read it and really start, it's a small book. It's kind of a handbook. It's not really a big book, so to say. But I intend to write more on the subject and build this whole thing for people who really want to rise. Because I feel some of these education pieces is also part of, not really part of your choice. Sometimes, you travel a journey. But I think acquiring skills all through this process called experience and learning is crucial. And that is what I wanted to kind of part to people. And because I've come up myself like that. So that's why I wrote that book. I hope I'll build on it and write a more comprehensive book on this to help people around. Thank you.
Thank you. Meera, you are co-authoring your book. This is your first book, and Talk to the Lions. So would you like to talk a little bit about the book?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. So I had the opportunity to be approached by Dr. Shalini Kalia. She's the Chief Academic Officer at NMIMS. And she and I had the opportunity to work before. She herself had authored 8 books before this. And she said, I've been following your work, and I think your and my lines need to meet now. And I teach the subject of communication. I see what you're doing out there. Can we create something? That's how the conversation started. And both of us then finally aligned on a space that could value with our subject, where we wanted to help people be able to have clear lines of communication with their bosses. So the name, Talk to the Lion. So if you know who your manager, your super manager, whoever it is, and you want to be able to establish clear lines of communication between them, how do you go about doing that? The book reflects on 2 parts. Of course, we have those simple ways of helping people identify what can you do to have more effective communication with the outside, whether it's perceived politics, whether you are perceiving some form of manipulation, whether you're perceiving that the person is aggressive, whatever your perception be, of course, we're helping you with tools for that. But the bigger conversation in the book is about discovering what happened that you perceive it the way you do. So we're helping them look within instead of carrying around labels for their bosses saying, ye to aisa hi hai. And breaking that label that's just so strongly stuck and that doesn't let you look at the same person in any different way is what we aim to introduce through the book, giving them a different lens, giving them an opportunity to identify the untold story of your own boss and what could have happened and the consequences as such. And also helping people identify that if they're stuck in a pattern of bad bosses, watch yourself, you're the common pattern. So that's what the book is about. Yes.
So congratulations, all of you, for your books. And Sheetal, I wanted to ask you about, your belief is that personal branding is critical for leadership, and this should be available to all potential women across all economic strata. And this has led to you starting an NGO called The Catalyst. So do tell us about, how you help and let them polish and build their brands.
The journey started 14 years ago with just 5 girls. I think ability to convey confidence, authority, and the best version of yourself, your executive presence, should not be entitlement of just a few people. Everybody should have access to it. So the journey focused on actually helping people upgrade the way they present themselves. So we came up with a proprietary 600-hour curriculum, only girls in engineering stream. So yes, women in STEM, women in tech. And the curriculum runs parallelly. So from year 1 to year 4 of engineering college. And they are also given corporate mentors, because I think mentoring is very important in that economic strata where your parents and your social circle is not your mentors. So just 2 interventions, a 600-hour curriculum, which focuses 70% on soft skills and 30% on technical skills, which are not taught in colleges, but are very critical for a job. And of course, mentoring corporate mentors. Very happy to say that many of the corporations which are currently in this room and have supported this initiative have also supported our girls. Currently, we have over 600 in the program across 4 centers. We started with the journey that they should not get the lowest level job because of the fact that in an interview, they don't communicate effectively or confidently. So they got the lowest job. But our aim was $1,000. Of course, today that sits at 75,000 rupees. But happy to share that most of our girls have either doubled the family income and some have even taken it up 5 times and are extremely well placed and have impacted over 1,500 lives. So yes, this has been a tremendous, satisfying journey. And our women leaders are across the world in vice president roles, sitting in different parts of the planet when we, had an alumni meet. So yes, thank you. And I think it's been extremely satisfying to see that it is available to, building a strong pipeline for women leaders and of course, bridging the gender gap.
Thank you, Sheetal. Personal branding is fraught for many women professionals. No one wants to look like, they're a craven self-promoter or with a likability conundrum. Building meaningful connections and a strong reputation at work is even more complicated for women across all strata. There's also a very thin line between how much and how. So could we just quickly talk about that point? Meera, would you want to just take up that point and talk about, the various strata, how you could, and also where do you say stop or where is that fine thin line?
Sheetal, I did hear you. Pardon me, it was coming a little broken. Could you post the question again for me?
Yes. So I just wanted you to speak about, women professionals who would like to, they shouldn't feel that they are craven for self-promotion, but how do they promote themselves as a brand, and also in various stratas what we are talking about, and what or where is the thin line about how much and where?
Okay, lovely. Sheetal. So when you ask me that question, allow me to go into a few specific examples. And we've been speaking about a lot of things today, but I'd love to see if we could give people specific examples. It is a myth to believe that personal branding is all about me. And if we could break that myth, again, we would have a lot of freedom in people expressing themselves. If the audience here could identify, if we are looking to develop a personal brand, and if I am clear about my skill, I'm clear about the subject, and I'm clear about the characteristic that I want to bring out, these three things are clear for me, then, for instance, if my choice of subject is, suppose, data science, what can I do such that the person out there on the other side is contributed to? Offline, I could be the person who initiates a club where we're meeting once a week in our office, talking about the latest technology in data science. A 30-minute presentation, whoever wants to step up, but you're the person who's bringing in people together because you want to make sure there's knowledge sharing happening among people. It's not about you. It's only that you've triggered the initiative, and you could ask people to volunteer, to step in, take up positions of responsibility. When we're talking about online, imagine if data science is your space and you want to go out there, make a bang in that space. Then what are you going to do? Pick up a book. I know there's not a lot that's been written in that space, but pick up a book, see if you find value in it, find an article, see if you find value in it, post that online, and then invite people to say, hey, I read this, and these are the 3 points that I got out of it. Sharing it for people who want to evolve themselves in Dash. Share your views.
I can see the live session going on.
Sheetal, am I with you?
Yes, you're with us. I think one of the panelists,
just joined. I understand.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to share with. How do we define the line of self-promotion and wanting to build an authentic personal brand? The authenticity is talk about the subject skill or characteristic that you really have. And if you really want to talk about self, like your story, you could certainly bring that in. You could bring that in as often as 50% of the times, as long as the story is intended that the other person be benefited, versus I was the strongest person in the room and I'm proud of that. That won't be the best message takeaway, but more like inspiring the other person. Hey, I know how difficult it gets and I know how you would feel in the room. I invite you. You wouldn't die in the room. Give this a shot.
Right.
So when your message is driven with the purpose of may this serve and benefit somebody else, that's where the shift changes from, is it all about you or is it about you making a difference?
Thank you, Meera. Yes, totally understand. You all have been talking about the authenticity part of it, and yet it does. So, Sajan, over to you for your key takeaways from this session today.
I think, to sum it short, we spoke about authenticity. We spoke about being yourself. We also spoke about drawing the line where you really want to drive a point. We also, I think, both Sheetal and Meera spoke about women, what are the, channels at which women can actually approach, and how important it is to women to stand for herself and build the brand themselves without inhibitions. I think we kind of touched about it. We also spoke about, importance to understand what values have you built yourself for and exhibit yourself. So I think these are the things which helps you create that personal brand in the right way. And Sheetal spoke about, you'll have to build it on a strong foundation, otherwise it can fall off. It's extremely important. The foundation, it's almost like building a house. You have to build it at the right foundation. So understanding these values and what you stand for, the strengths you stand for, are the real foundation at which you build your personal brand. And what do you want? You don't want a fad. You don't want a brand which just comes and goes, right? You want a brand which stays here forever. So choose it wisely, understand, do a little bit of endoscopy and understand your strengths and weaknesses, and build it on a very extremely solid foundation. And that personal brand is here to stay. And I think the last piece is in the changing world, creating a personal brand is equally important, because everybody would want to know what you stand for before they really start following you as a person. So it's important to tell them what you stand for and allow them to make their choices on you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sajan. Sheetal, quickly, any takeaways that you would like to add to?
Yes, that being liked and being successful are not opposites for women leaders. Also, personal brand is not a time for show and tell. It doesn't, you don't have to over communicate. It's not for only successful people and celebrities. Each of us can go out and build it. You're not going to be perceived as selfish or narcissistic or too much focused on me. I think it's important to understand that take baby steps, start the journey, and be creative, and all of us can do it, and there is no rocket science to it. Just sit down and start the journey and get down a few words, maybe even a brand statement, and the path you'll find the path.
Thank you. Thank you, Meera. Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you, Sajan. As I started initially, and I said that today's session will be unveiling a lot of secrets. And if you all have been attentive, in fact, I have had a notepad and I've got several things which I have noted down for my day's learning. And it's been a very interesting session. I hope that all the panel discussion here and all the people who have participated have felt it insightful and will also help you take your brand and career to the next level. Take it from me that there will be bumps and obstacles all the way, and you may need to make occasional changes to get back on track. But take one step at a time and you will find yourself looking amazing down back at the world that you left behind. So it's a journey well worth taking. Thank you all for taking out time and making this panel discussion so interesting. Over to you, Sonal.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Sonal, you're on mute. You're not audible.
Okay, I'll take over. I think Sonal is having some difficulties. Hi, everyone. After the last session, thank you so much, Sheetal. Yeah, Sonal, can you?
Am I audible, Ranjana?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to say, like, I have got few points, and these points, like, you can say like creativity, authenticity, and what value you are adding for your personal branding. So these key points are like good for us as well as for our new startups. So thank you so much, Sheetal, for a very, very good session, and thank you all the panelists. Now over to you, Ranjana, for next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you, Sonal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have great pleasure in introducing the next session on women entrepreneurs, key learnings. If any of the panelists have not switched on their videos, kindly do so. And I'm going to start by introducing Mr. Robin Banerjee. I have great pleasure in introducing Mr. Robin Banerjee, who's the Managing Director of Capri Hands India Limited. He's also a very dear friend and colleague in CII. Earlier, he served in several multinational global corporations in senior leadership positions, including Hindustan Unilever, ArcelorMittal Germany, Thomas Cook, Essar Steel, and Suzlon Energy. Mr. Banerjee is a chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, and an NCOM. He has a host of degrees to his credit. He's a member of the Board of Studies for Independent Directors, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. He's also in the board of SME Chamber of India. He's in the boards of several other companies as an independent director. And most importantly, despite his very busy schedule, Robin has authored 2 best-selling business non-fictional books titled Who Cheats and How, available in English, Hindi, and Marathi, and Who Blunders and How. And I can let you know that these books are amazing to read. And if you have not read, I would request all of you to pick up a copy and read them. It's really, really, plethora of knowledge that you get from there. So I would invite Mr. Banerjee to start the session. Over to you, Robin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm little uncertain as to having 4 most beautiful women. Actually, now I have 5, including Jana, being on the panel and talking about women entrepreneurship. So a little nervous, but let's see how it goes. We have 1 hour together. And thank you, everyone, to being on this web together. The way I would like to handle this, I would introduce a few sentences
Sorry, Robin,
about...
you're not very audible. Can you just, it's not very, yeah, sorry for interrupting.
If you can't hear me, is this okay better now? Closer?
Slightly better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I will do is I will state a few sentences about the panelists today, about yourself. But if you agree, my dear ladies, that I would request all 4 of you, or I think 4 of you instead of 3 of you, to state a few sentences, about 3 to 5 minutes or 3 to 4 minutes, about the type of work you're doing. We are talking about today of entrepreneurship, especially of women entrepreneurship. And each one of you on this web are so successful that we need to now get some learning out of it. And hopefully in 60 minutes from now, the webinar, the audience here, and those who would be listening to this later on, gets loads of knowledge and learnings as to how to make a start and how to make a success of entrepreneurship. So if I may quickly go through first the 2 beautiful sisters, Sujata Biswas and Tania Biswas. They are actually the fashion queen. They've set up an enterprise called Suta. You would obviously like to know more about it. I've seen the wonderful pictures you have. It's available, the Suta saris which you have. Sujata Biswas is an alumni of IIFT Delhi, which necessarily means you are a fashion queen and you know what is fashion all about. Strangely, Tania is an engineer from NIT Rourkela, and you are also an IIM Lucknow postgraduate. My goodness, what type of, we couldn't even have a better duo than you are. I'm not getting into all the details about the work you are doing, but yes, both the sisters have started an enterprise called Suta, which is extremely successful, and we should hear more about you a little later. I now move to Vasudha. Vasudha, yes, you are there. Thank you, Vasudha. Vasudha Madhavan. Vasudha is the founder of Ostara Advisors. In fact, Vasudha, your former name was Dhruva Advisors. So I'm not too sure whether it belongs to Dinesh Kanabar or not. And I know Dinesh, a personal friend of mine. Perhaps it does. And that was formerly it was Dhruva Advisors. Now it's Ostara Advisors. And very strange, not strangely, very importantly, you are one of the first investment banker of electric mobility. So now I know for my next EV car, where do I go for finding for? So obviously we will head for you. You have more than 18 years of experience in corporate investment banking. Vasudha has earned an MBA in finance from XLI Jamshedpur. Couldn't be better than that. And she is also, fantastic it is, advanced scuba diver. My goodness. And enjoys photography, having held several solo and group exhibitions of her work. We couldn't have a better person than Vasudha here. We now have Ipsita. Ipsita, are you there on this? Yes, thank you, Ipsita. Yes, I can see you. Ipsita Sen. Ipsita is an internal external communication expert. Just imagine all the English pronunciations which shall go wrong today. Ipsita will say, hey, hello, this is not the way to pronounce your English. But thank you so much, Ipsita, being here. She has more than 20 years of international experience working across markets in India, GCC, UK, and Southeast Asia. Not much is left of the world, Ipsita. Ipsita in 2018 set up Engendered, not endangered, but engendered. I love this word, to address the challenge in diversity and inclusion at the workplace and in marketing communication. She's a communication expert. We would definitely like to know more about this, how to take help of it. Ipsita is also the president of the Indian chapter, Global Women in PR. GWPR is an international network of senior women in public relations and corporate communications around the world for mentoring and supporting women. Well, this is in short. So ladies, maybe I would like to go to the 2 sisters first, if it's okay with you. We'll start with the Suta story. About 3 to 4 minutes. If you could just, Sujata and Tania, let us know your journey. And based on that, we'll obviously have a lot of questions as we go along. So over to you, the 2 sisters. Thank you. Go ahead, Tania and Sujata, as you wish. 3 to 4 minutes should be good enough.
Yes. Thank you so much for the introduction. Just a small change I would like to make. So IIFT is not fashion. I wish I was from fashion background. So both of us are engineers and MBAs. Yeah, we started the e-commerce firm Suta, which in 2016. We were actually happily in the corporate world, and then when we were working, we liked our jobs, also the pay, but we didn't find the satisfaction we were looking at, because we wanted to see lives impacted, and also bring back saris in a way in daily lives, which was going away, we felt. And that's how we started with three-member team, and now we are a 130-member team, and also from 2 weavers to now 15,000 plus weavers and artisans we work with across India. Yeah, so we are super proud that we are part of 12 states, and these 15,000 weavers and craftsmen are the backbone of Suta. And to be honest, that's the vision with which we started, and we are a bootstrapped company. Yeah, the vision of Suta, how we want to grow forward, is to make the backbone, which is the weavers base, stronger as much as possible. Our supply chain should be stronger. Yeah, so we are on the journey of working with the different clusters, bringing arts and crafts of different states forth, and also simplistic designs, and hence bringing saris back in style, in vogue. And also one more thing I wanted to highlight is that when we started working with the weavers clusters and single weavers, we realized that the entire family is involved in weaving, but the women in the family does not have an account, and hence we started working with them individually and started opening their accounts, and we have around 60% artisans as women, and which is something which we really are happy that it has happened. And we are eradicating the middlemen who were there, who were not giving the payments on time. So that's what we were targeting to achieve, and we are going there slowly. Yeah, so that's the aim, and here we are.
What a wonderful journey, Tanya and Sujata. I would definitely like to pick on this aspect of supply chain management and how you guys have eliminated the middlemen. 15,000 weavers. What a fantastic story. So I'll get back to you. Ipshita, is it okay if we now hear your story, Ipshita? Ipshita Sen?
Yes, certainly. Hi.
Hi.
So I'll just take a minute to talk about how I came to be an entrepreneur, because I spent 20 years working and loving what I do. But during my time, so I worked in advertising and then moved into public relations and corporate communications. And as I progressed in my own career, it was weird that when you work in a community that has so many women at junior levels, as you grow higher and go, climb the corporate ladder, you see them disappearing from around you. And this is not something that was peculiar to India. It is something that happens all over the world. And that sort of propelled me, because honestly, it was not something that I felt very much for myself, right? As I didn't realize that when I was, younger and working, I didn't realize that there were many challenges that I was not facing, but, Indian women and women in PR and comms were actually facing. And as you grow and as you work with larger teams and you have all this exposure, you realize that something's not right. If there are 70% women at entry levels, then why is the management team only 15% women? And what's happening? And the usual things of, family and children and all of that, those are there. But, that didn't seem to be the only reason why this was happening. So a few years, in that space, I decided then that I wanted to do something about it. And that's how Engendered happened. I started working when I started Engendered, I started actually working with women in the corporate world first, because that was my area of understanding and I knew how that worked. And some of the things that I wanted to bring forward was how to manage and be proactive about your career. Right? Often career changes, etc., just happen, and you move along with that. Right? Not many women actually plan their careers proactively. And there are culture fits and things like that that they don't think about. And in the Indian context, these things are not available in the public domain. So when you're looking for a job, you really don't know what questions to ask for. And this was where Engendered started 2 years ago. While doing all of that, so in the corporate space, Engendered works with about 8 to 10,000 women now. And in the, so from that, also realized, being a woman entrepreneur myself and having worked so many years and all of that, but I realized how difficult it is to navigate then the space where you're an entrepreneur, and you have to have the right kind of networks and all of the things that are necessary if you want to grow your company. And that's how the other part of Engendered happened, which is where I work with small and micro entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, helping them scale their business. And I'm sure I'll talk about that later. But these are the two ways in which Engendered supports women.
Amazing story, Ipshita. Amazing story as to how you have beaten the way, essentially speaking, the Indian family works, where women, as you rightly mentioned, drops off. 15% of the senior executives are women. In the works is only 7 or 8% are directors. In independent directors, whenever they take a call as to how many independent directors are there in India, just imagine 50% of our population has 7% representation. This is a disaster. So I'm sure all of us together from CII especially, hopefully we can change the society sooner than later. Well, thank you so much, Ipshita. I'll come back to you on this. Vasudha, we all want to hear how to get money. We all need more money. We want to be successful. And the only thing we always lack is money. We don't have money. Now, we are all going to you, Vasudha, how to get more money. Go ahead, Vasudha, with your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. So my journey is pretty much that of a professional, which turned into an entrepreneurial role. I have been in banking, for some time, and I was with ICICI and then Citibank, and having, worked in these organizations gave me valuable experience in client exposure, deals, working on transactions, working in teams, etc. And also handling, managing interactions with different cultures and so on. I did realize that, as I completed about 9 odd years with the large bulge bracket banks, I realized that I really liked what I did. And I kind of also was starting to form an opinion about the sectors that I liked or the kind of work that I wanted to do, etc. And I also had multiple kind of sort of incentives for me to think about how I could do this in my own way and rediscover the investment banking the way I would like to do it, so to speak. So that really sort of led me to take a step out and to sort of see how that would work out for me. So I kind of transitioned from bulge bracket banking into boutique investment banking. And after that, started up in 2015. So it's about 6 years or so. Initially, actually, Dinesh's and my firms are probably born around the same time, within probably a month of each other, and not knowing, and chose the same name. And of course, I'm purely into investment banking, and they're more on the tax advisory side. So we existed, so my work has involved a lot of advising companies on fundraising, as well as on mergers and acquisitions. And I continue to do that. When I started up, it was a huge, I would say the difference for me was to rediscover the networks that I had built. Now in a slightly different way, rediscover the true strength of relationships that I had built through my career, and build on them and create many more. I think relationships are really, really key to entrepreneurship. That is my learning. and that is I really value that, and that's also I revel in them. So it's something that is something it's not a job for me at any point. So that's really what I learned, and I also learned the freedom of being able to pursue something where a lot of big boys exist, but there were no big girls, and it just gave me an opportunity to find. And really, like Ipshita mentioned, I probably did not face some of those things, or maybe I wasn't aware of it, of some of those discriminations or areas where women do tend to fall back. It is true that banking and finance is a very, very male-dominated industry. It is very rare that I find a woman in banking, investment banking or corporate finance, and it is also quite rare that I work with a woman entrepreneur who's raising for fundraising for her business, or who's leading a business. So it is beginning to change. But it still is a very, very rare thing, and every little bit counts. So it was amazing to hear what Ipshita mentioned. So that's really my journey. How electric mobility came in was that as part of my work, I was focusing on manufacturing and related sectors in aerospace components and the automotive components, and that brought me into touch with a very, very interesting company which wanted to look at strategies in clean mobility, and a startup that had already done it. So my role was to bring these two companies together and to create an M&A where it was a win-win for both, and it led to scale for one, and it led to an exit for a female founder, in fact. So the company that was sold as part of that M&A was a company called Ampere Vehicles, which made electric two-wheelers. They're a pioneering company founded by Hemalata, who's I think very, very well known and is a pioneer in electric mobility. So that is how my journey started, and I realized that there is a need among founders in this ecosystem, which was fast starting to grow and pick up speed over the last 2-3 years, for advice around fundraising from somebody who understood the various concepts, the interdependencies between the ecosystem, and how to, and from the manufacturing to the technology or the software side of it and everything in between. And I did take the pains to kind of learn and read more about it and understand and learn with my clients as I worked with them on fundraisers. There is also the need to create a larger investor segment. Electric mobility still doesn't get quite as many investors as some of the consumer tech or SaaS or some of these other sectors do get. So there is a real need to create awareness among investors and to create that confidence that there are great founders to be backed, and there is money to be made. So that's really the mission that I'm.
Thank you, Vasudha. I'm definitely going to come back to you how to get some more money from you, because all of us, all the listeners here and the participants would definitely like to know more about how to get more money. But if I may be allowed to shift to Tanya and Sujata. Tanya and Sujata, you are actually the ones, all four of you are successful startup entrepreneurs, but you both of you have done completely something different. So can you tell us how you started, what the difficulties which you faced, which you would like to advise the other entrepreneurs? And I also wanted to spend a little time on that supply chain, the way you guys have handled it. So in the next few minutes, would you kindly explain something on this? What difficulties you faced, any learnings therefrom, and how did you handle the whole supply chain issue, which to my mind is all blocked up by the so-called middlemen?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just so happy to hear the panelists here. So I'm just still in that zone. So coming back to about the challenges we faced. To be honest, first challenge is that we were not from this industry, the fashion industry, so to say. But then we studied business, so we understood how to do business. So it took a lot of time to learn what the business is about. So we learned hands-on. We learned it from the weavers. We learned it from vendors. We got cheated on the way a couple of times where we lost a lot of money. but then fighting and coming back on track is something I think it needs a lot of grit. It needs a lot of support from the family and friends and peers. So I think that's one thing that entrepreneurship is about, right? That you will keep getting roadblocks, you'll keep facing challenges. I'm sure all of us have our own set of challenges, being female or male. Irrespective of the gender, we all have our own set of challenges, but then coming back on track is something which nobody teaches you literally, but then it's also the passion that drives you. Sometimes you think that this is the one chance that you have taken in your career and in your life to, start something and make it work. And if you don't put all your heart and soul and hard work into it, and if it fails, then there's mostly no coming back, to take a second chance. And because you can always go back to the corporate with this stable life, but taking this one chance and making it work was all for it. So that's what pushed us a lot. Yeah. Plus, in the initial days, I think the major challenge was to let go of the verticals and to trust people, because when you get cheated once, you don't trust people easily. And that is a mistake also I think we did, that we felt that we both of us do this the best and I cannot give it out to someone. For example, finance. We saw everything from top to bottom, and giving it out to someone, hiring someone and trusting was, I think it came a little late. We started hiring full-fledgedly after like 1.5 years. Initially keeping the control, I think losing control is something that all of us are scared of. I think there'll come the time that you'll have to let go of processes and systems which you have built, and you have to give it to somebody. I think that all entrepreneurs face that issue of letting go of different verticals. Finance is one, then supply chain is another, to just trust somebody to make sure the orders go on time, the right messages are communicated to the weavers, and the weavers are not being cheated, or they don't feel bad, and because they're the vulnerable communities, right? They just trust what we say. So providing them 365 days of work, which we promised them, is something that we really wanted to do and not fail at it, because they have trusted, they have left their routine job and they've come to us, and promising them work, that much amount of work was very important. And hence, I think letting go, creating systems around this took a lot of time for us. We do not have anybody in business in our family, so I think we faced a lot of challenge there. We personally know a lot of entrepreneurs. We are a part of a lot of networks where we speak to each other, especially women. And there also I've seen that for growing, people are scared to even hire people for different roles and different verticals, and hence they stay small. And that's big step. When scaling up is difficult for them. I think this is one reason where people lack. Also, the supply chain bit, which you asked us, how we made it work really well was that we defined our systems really well. We didn't grow in a day. We took very small steps each day to make it work. So our payment structures is super transparent. Whatever we wrote, whatever we want to articulate to our weavers, to our customers, everything was crisp and written so that everybody understands. People can challenge us, question us, because we wanted to stay transparent, and that should be the foundation for growth, is what we believed in. So supply chain also, I think we started with a very, very transparent communication with our weavers. So we do not reject weavers' products. If there's a mistake, genuine mistake that has happened, we do deduct a certain percentage, but we do not let that inventory lie on their head for them to sell. We take everything in. The moment we do the quality check, we make sure the payment happens on time. That builds a lot of trust, and that's how replication for us, the model which we built in one village, to replicate it in the second village was simple. I would not say easy, was simple. And every day as we speak, because of technology, a lot of things change, and we keep everything up to date. We make sure that we've learned a lot of, we've used technology to our advantage, so that every day there's a development that happens in the villages. We make sure the infrastructure is on point, at par with different companies. We build the roads, we help in building the school infrastructure which is there in the local communities. This actually makes sure that the weavers do only work with us, and even if there's some bigger company who's replicating the processes and the products. If they pay them more, they will not leave this, because we work as a community and not just working like an employer and employee. That relationship that we are building is what has set us apart in many ways. And when people ask us that how do you get to design what you design with them, because sometimes it's like rigid barriers. So how we enter in that, we tell them that 365 days is my promise, and even if there's a defect, I will make sure that if it's genuine, if it's not like they didn't do it knowingly and it just happened, we will take it as is, no matter what, and I'll upcycle it to something else. And these promises, the small promises that we do on ground when we meet them, is what I think has helped us keep our supply chain really good. Yeah. We used to not supply thread initially, but now we are going to the yarn level, and now probably we'll go to the cotton farming level someday. I don't know, hopefully. But then I think every level there needs an intervention. And initially we found out there are challenges, and every day we find a new challenge. Now we are able to supply thread to them so that they don't face that problem there. So everyday solving problem is what we believe in. And when your core values is set and we don't deviate from that, and that's in the right space, I think growing and scaling will be proper, and it will not fall flat on its face.
Well, wonderful. I think you guys can continue for the whole night, because you have so much story to say, so much you people have learned. But what I have learned from you in these last few minutes of chat is that you have, as an entrepreneur, realized that I can't do it all, or both of us can't do it all. We need others to help us. I think that's what my learning from you all. It's a typical situation in entrepreneurship that many entrepreneurs believe I know it all. And that's why most of the entrepreneurship fail, because entrepreneur cannot know everything. You cannot be a marketing guy, a manufacturing guy, an IT guy, an HR guy, a finance guy. It's not possible. You need people. And the second thing which I learned from you is you trusted people. And not only you trusted people, initially you had cheating, people distrust, reverse trusted you all, took advantage of your trust, but then you perhaps learned how to move ahead with time. And third, which is very important, you paid your suppliers on time, irrespective of what happens. And that, to my mind, has helped to strengthen your supply chain, because the vendors gets paid on time. And that's, to my mind, is one of the very important threads of supply chain in any business context throughout the globe. Well, thank you so much. These were my learnings, but of course, we are still going to discuss. Time, as you know, is always running out. We will always be short of time. We would like to continue to hear you. But Ipshita, if I may kindly move to you, that you are a communication specialist. You are a PR person. You are a corporate communication person. You've worked with huge organizations. Could you please tell us how the startup entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, can take advantage of your skills? And my CII women members, why women? Anyone can take advantage of your skill. It is not women specific, to my mind. Would you like to throw some light on it? How this communication, PR and corporate communication, can be taken advantage of? Ipshita.
Yes, sure. I will tell you that. But I would just, before I get to that, if I may, just quickly carrying on from, from what we were hearing. It's so, how do I say, inspiring to hear these stories, because honestly, I don't think there is enough knowledge and understanding of how difficult small and micro entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, how difficult it is for them to scale, because most of them don't have the business knowledge, right? And these things were touched upon by the other panelists. So important, of networking, of managing supply chain, of trusting people and bringing them in. So this is the part of Engendered that grew, and is growing most rapidly, where I support women entrepreneurs in scaling business. But I will I'll come to your question now. So one of the big things that we see in the space of entrepreneurship and generally with leaders and experts is positioning themselves. And I'm just going to talk about women. It applies to men as well, but since I mostly work with women, this is a learning from my PR and communication days. Whenever there was an opportunity with media to put forth an expert, we ourselves, in 9 out of 10 cases, the expert we put forward was a male expert. Because it isn't like in large clients that we handled, it wasn't that there aren't women experts there as well, but it's just that they are so hesitant in stepping forward, and it's something that they don't enjoy. So they would rather not do it. Without understanding how it affects the whole space. It affects their own careers. It affects how we position them as, in media, and also while as entrepreneurs when you're raising funds or you're trying to attract talent. So this is where corporate communications, understanding your personal brand, understanding who you are and how you want to position yourself, because eventually you cannot run the business yourself. And why, when you want to attract talent, why would somebody who has the kind of expertise, knowledge that you seek, why would they come and work for you? You have to inspire them, because it is most likely that you are in a, you're much smaller as a company than the person you're trying to attract, right? Where they are working at the moment. So for instance, technology, everybody wants to hire from Google and Facebook, but why should somebody step out of Google and come work for you? And if you don't spend time right from get-go in building your networks, in building your expertise, your story, your vision, then what are you going to sell? And this whole thing has an effect on how you fundraise, how all of that, right? So I think there isn't particularly with women, there isn't a great deal of understanding of this part of it, because they're so focused in trying to make it work, trying to cobble together resources, finances, whatever it may be, lack of business skills because they learn on the job, that these things don't sort of strike at the time that it should. And my learning and my advice to everybody is that start as you start your business, because these things take time to build. You cannot build a personal brand overnight, right?
Very well said, Ipshita. Many a times entrepreneurs feel that my business will speak for itself, but it doesn't. Business always has a name, and it is always a goodwill which works together with it. It could be a personal branding, it could be a business branding. It's so nice that you spent time on this, and you would hopefully continue to help us to make it more workable. Vasudha, if you agree with me, we all want more money. So if you could kindly let us know, there are many entrepreneurs here around. How do we access, let's say, a private equity fund or venture capitalist or a banking system? Because if you go to PE and venture capitalists, we are looking for equity. If you go into the banks and NBFC, looking for debt. For an entrepreneur, at the beginning, I don't think it matters to them. They want money, whichever way it comes. Could you please throw some light as to how to look for money when someone is starting all by himself or herself, and there is hardly any branding or goodwill around him or her?
Right. Yeah, thank you, Robin. I think what Ipshita mentioned is truly important. Personal branding and creating content, or talking about what your vision is, etc. It does help even in the fundraising process. PR actually plays a good amount. I mean, it plays an important role in dovetailing with your roadshows with investors. So even if the PR is to do with your business or thought leadership or areas in which the company is known for, it really does contribute. From a fundraising perspective specifically, I unfortunately haven't worked too much with very early stage. So my work has been with sort of growth stage, more or less. But I can start to throw some light on how the funding journey looks like for a business. And if I just take something and with technology, even idea stage funding is possible, which is to say that if you have a great idea on which you want to create a software product, for instance, then you could actually get funded at an idea stage. And here I'm of course talking about equity. And let me just cover the equity value chain first. So the equity essentially starts with very early stage. It of course starts with angels, angel networks, and even with accelerators. I think those are the early stage sources, very early stage sources of capital where you could access funding, at the early stages of business. You could also, if you have an idea, you could go to the early stage VCs as well. So there are funds which would support you, but obviously you have a high bar and threshold to cross to really make that cut. And a lot depends on how well you understand the core underpinnings of what the investor is looking for. So one often, I think, the common mistakes that entrepreneurs tend to make, and I think this is true for men and women, is that they focus when they are pitching their business to an investor. They are thinking about how passionate they are about what they've created, and how important it is that it grows and it gets capital and all of that, which is all important, which is absolutely true. But it is also important to understand the requirements of the investor, whichever category that investor may belong to, and tailor your pitch in accordance to that. So if, for instance, one of the requirements could be a certain time frame within which that investor would want to invest, make the returns and exit. So that is important for you to factor in. The other could be in an angel situation or an HNI kind of an investor support situation. There could be something else that is important for that investor, and that which is why they would support a company. For instance, in my area, which is sustainable mobility and clean energy, I see there are passionate funds, passionate family offices, passionate HNIs which want to support those areas, and therefore it's important to understand what they are looking for and to see if that is something that your business can help them with in terms of so it's important to think of them. The other, then as you grow up the value chain and you have a business and you have starting to get traction with clients, I think it's angel networks or even early stage VCs tend to be relevant for a fairly long phase of your sort of growth, which are the most critical phases. The sort of I would say the very, very core milestone for a business to achieve is a product market fit. Whether it is in software, it is commonly kind of used, but I think the concept is true for any business, is to say that you have a recognized standardized product and you have customers that will buy from you on a predictable basis, and you have been able to set up the backend to be able to serve that market. So once you have an early sort of proof of this, you can start to go to more institutional investors. And then again, it depends on the kind of equity investors, because the typical requirement, apart from other things, is the kind of scale that you can achieve within a short period of time. And that could be a very, very important driving factor. Scalability and the size of the market is one of the sort of initial stage things that they would look for. So it's important for you to assess, even before you're starting a business, it's important for you to assess what kind of a market are you really catering to, and is it large enough, or is it niche, or is it, even if it is niche, what is the sort of specific value that you bring to that niche, and how are you going to be unbeatable in that niche? So that could be a way for you to pitch. And then, of course, growth capital phases are a different story. You have larger investors, deals of upwards of $15 to $20 million is a different story in terms of where you're scaling and how much you're growing, and it depends on the business. So that I think, but at the early stage, when you're probably raising your first a few $100,000 of funding or the first few millions, I think it's very, very important to understand the core market, the core product that you bring to the table, the kind of customer offtake, and to see where it will grow to, and as well as dovetail that with what the investors are looking for.
Excellent, excellent. Vasudha, you really said wonderful stuff. Essentially speaking, there should be a business plan and try to ensure and try to paint a picture of how the financial viability will look like in the near future, and the idea as to why someone should give me money rather than give someone else money. Excellent, I agree. If I may go to Tanya and Sujata. Tanya and Sujata, you guys have really developed a huge ecosystem. Today, 15,000. I hope the next year when you come for our so-called program, hopefully there'll be 1 or 2 zeros around on the right-hand side, and we are really looking forward to it. What has been the role of human resources in this journey? Have you guys faced anything on that? Do you think HR has played some role? Because supply chain we have talked about, you are being cheated being talked about, trusted being talked about. What about HR, human resources? You are dealing with people, left, right, and center.
HR, I think in MBA classes, I think I ignored HR classes the most for some reason, but I feel it's the most important thing. It could make or break a company. Your team is what would define. They are literally the torchbearer of your vision. What we did, I think last year, when COVID happened, we were just 25 of us, and now we are 130 of us. So I think it's more important that we understand different departments and the way a startup needs to grow in terms of human resources is super important. Our philosophy, I think we are sort of unique, and we have been talked about in a lot of case studies about this, that we do not hire based on the resume. We literally look at the male body when we hire. It's mainly the intent of the person, is that what we see, or the passion lies behind their motive to join our company is what we see. And also the biggest part is that we build processes around people. It's not like a large organization where there are rigid structures of how a department should work. It's very fluid. In a startup, it's always known to be fluid because when people say that if you really want to know about a business, join a startup, because you can see all departments together, how it works. We started like that, but now we have departments, each and every department we have, starting from legal to inventory, operations, HR, marketing, creative, content. Yes, we have created everything now. Yeah, and they are so dependent on each other. I think it's very important about to constantly communicate. I think communication is the key when you're hiring. Everybody is aware of where you are going, where you're heading, and what's the directive. So that's super critical. Communicating the value of the company. I think the more the organization grows, it becomes super critical that every department has a set role and definition, but at the same time having floaters. I think this is what we learned, I think, in the last couple of years, having floaters, team members who can actually fit in a lot of roles. Having those kind of roles is also super critical, especially for entrepreneurs. If entrepreneurs are listening to me, I think this is one learning I got from a professor in one of the college who's a mentor, who said you should have people who would fit in a lot of roles. It helps you. Actually, it helps you during scaling, during when you're going through a challenge, when you need to reduce your structure, you need to reduce your manpower probably or increase, then these people can fit in different places and they'll grow, and that's a very important thing.
I must confess that you guys are superheroes in HR. The way you have seamlessly spoken between the two of you, and you know exactly what the two sisters should speak to each other. That's a great learning, at least I'm having. I was wondering how both of you will handle it, but seamlessly you are handling it. And that's exactly called trust. That's exactly called, to my mind, how you read human beings, human minds. Well, thank you so much. Ipsita, I know we are running out of time. we really want to learn so much from you, but we just have another 10 minutes. So let's make best out of it, whatever we have. Ipshita, you create capabilities amongst the startup entrepreneurs. And after all, this is a man's world. So time being short, could you please kindly tell us that how you do that? Is there any learning for all the listeners here who would like to take on? What are the capabilities which are very important, which people should focus on, and how you help? And especially when in this man's world, how to handle this whole dichotomy of our society?
So very quickly, what happens, my observation has been that when women are trying to scale up, you need to bring in certain kind of expertise. It may be in the form of managing your books, making them ready for investors, or it could be whatever it may be, or you're hiring, you need a senior human resource person to actually look at how your organization is growing and what you need. But they don't have enough money, right, to pay people who come with that kind of experience. So what Engender does is, on the back end, I have a whole host of experts who work on projects. So tomorrow, if there is somebody who needs a CFO to look at the books, then they don't need to bring somebody on board and pay them a full salary, right? You can hire somebody to do the specific bit that you want. So if you need legal expertise, if you need any of that, because my experience was that you may go into incubators and you may have mentors. Honestly, while the broad learning is great, but it doesn't address a specific problem that you have in your business. And that's what is the bridge that I try to sort of make between the experts who are out there and entrepreneurs that need that service.
Basically, you will be able to provide, and you are providing the crutch for the startup entrepreneurs to move ahead. And the crutch could be of various types of crutches. You have the legal crutch, you have the finance crutch, and I presume you will be having marketing, sales, and HR crutches. Well, that is wonderful. This is a great business model, Ipshita, you have got. I didn't realize that this is what you are doing, that you are actually helping the whole ecosystem of startups, not to spend themselves, but to get into, go to you, and you will help the ecosystem. Fantastic. Vasudha, now you see, Tani and Sujata has created such a wonderful business, and Ipshita is creating a backup system, and you will give us money. So everything now through this panel, to my mind, all the listeners would have got everything. But the question here is, you would obviously give us money, and you did tell us how to get some equity. And if you have a good idea and business plan, it is possible. But you are in mobility, in the electric mobility, whatever. You are basically in the green space. Could you quickly tell us, is the green space a great place to be in?
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many ways to look at it. If you look at the value chain, really it starts with clean energy, because energy is ever present in our lives in multiple ways that we are using it, and it's really and both from a consumer and an industrial standpoint. So that is really, I mean, with climate goals across the world becoming ever more important, India has its own targets, and transportation actually accounts for about 14% of total emissions. Industry is the other large source of emissions. And in order to reduce them, clean mobility is a very, very important source. What we are seeing is that transport's role or transport's share in emissions is expected to go from the 14% that I mentioned to close to 30% in the next 5 to 10 years. So it's a very, very large jump that is expected. And also we know that it is a source of several diseases and health concerns and all of that. So clean mobility which actually runs on if the source of energy is also renewable, then the entire value chain becomes non-polluting, and therefore it reduces pollutants in the air, particulate matter that we are so worried about, and causes so many issues. So that's really one. The other thing that I see is very, very important, and from a career or from a business perspective, is the scope for innovation that it provides. Because what has happened is that till now we've had the automotive industry operate in a certain way, we've had energy operate in a certain way, and none of these industries have really changed a lot, right, in the last several decades. But what this causes us to do is the advent of clean mobility and the focus on clean energy is that it involves, it creates new uses of technology, software, hardware engineering, new thought around material sciences. I mean, there are so many ways in which innovation gets impacted, and there's a scope for innovation. And so therefore, I urge more entrepreneurs to really look at this space, aspiring entrepreneurs, as well as existing entrepreneurs, to really explore this space, because it is going to be a very, very huge space and an industry going forward.
Absolutely, Vasudha, what you said, it's definitely the future. Now that we have run out of time, I would like to ask the three of you, not three of you, four of you. Of course, Tanya and Sujata just work seamlessly, so it's one of you. I would like to ask three of you, or four of you, sorry. What is your one sentence, one advice, which you would like to give to the future women entrepreneurs, especially the startup entrepreneurs, based on your experience so far? Just give us one advice to them they should perhaps pay attention to, or something which you have learned and something mistake which they should not do. Just one advice, that will be good enough. Tanya and Sujata, first, both of you actually. Go ahead.
I think I would advise that being agile is very, very important in this changing, fast-changing world, because social media and digital marketing is evolving as we speak. We didn't even study these subjects back in the campus. So I think being agile and being present everywhere and, quickly adapt to the changing systems is really important. I would suggest that making a dashboard which is crisp, which you look at, at the end of the month or daily. You can make dashboards, but make sure you're on top of the game, looking at all the numbers together, which makes sense. Derive those, insights out of it, so that there's no leakage, there's no issue. So you look at the broad picture in the dashboard. It's very, very critical. I think you must look at numbers. Numbers talk the truth. Nothing else makes sense.
Both of you are engineers. That's what. And in financial terms, it's called the Management Information System. Have a MIS system in place so that you know exactly where the business is going every week, every month, every quarter, every year. Thank you so much, Tanya and Sujata. A quick word of advice, Vipshita, from you, because you are already having 9,000 to 10,000 people who are advising. You are advising and holding your crutch. Go ahead, Vipshita.
I would say build your network. That's so very important. Everything that you need will come from the network that you have. So the better your network, the better for you.
Love it. Absolutely. Your net worth is your network. Fantastic. Vasudha, the money.
I actually agree with Ipshita. I will just add to it to say that, network is, invest in relationships, I think, is what I would say, which is really the same, similar to what she said. I think other challenges are hiring challenges, which Tanya and Sujata spoke about, are also very real, and they're true. But and I think the network and relationships can actually help solve some of those challenges.
Vasudha, you are the first finance person who have not given finance advice. You've actually given advice for everything else. Thank you so much. It's really, really great. I enjoyed every minute. I think one of the most powerful panels I have ever attended. With four of you, so stunningly pretty, stunning beautiful, and stunningly entrepreneurial, and so intelligent and brilliant. Thank you. It was my pleasure and honor to be with you. I sincerely wish all for you a great success. Please be part of CII Women's Fold, and all of you together can actually make a difference to our society. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Thank you. Over to you, Ranjan. Bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you so much.
Ranjana, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I said, thank you, Robin, for moderating the session so wonderfully. I don't even need to, recap anything because you have done it all. And each one of you, you were amazing. Sujata, Tanya, the two sisters, and NIT is very close to me, NIT Raurkela, so that was an added advantage. Vasudha, Ipshita, you were all wonderful. And the three takeaways that you gave, that, having a dashboard, networking and investing in relationships, I think are all takeaways apart from all that you talked about. Thank you once again, Robin, and thanks all of you for, for this very, very invigorating session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Over to you, Sheetal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjana. As we go ahead with our next session on boundary setting and work-life balance, could I request all the panelists to switch on their videos? I would like to introduce Poonam Kaushik, moderator for the session. Ms. Poonam Kaushik is a multifaceted businesswoman and is the founder and deputy managing director of Meteoric Biopharmaceuticals Private Limited. She is also the founder and managing trustee of Vishalvin Foundation, which is working on various social objectives. Poonam started her career at an early age of 17 when she joined her family business. She carries over 20 years of experience in diverse markets like stock and commodities derivatives, chemicals, bullions, and biopharmaceuticals. Her focus roles have been into business development, finance management, corporate communications, media relations, brand management, HR, and consulting. She is an ardent leader and an influencer. Through her recent social initiative, she has decided to give back to society and is passionately working for children with special needs and intellectual disabilities. Support higher education for young adults from economic weaker sections who are not being able to pursue higher education due to financial constraints. Setting up ambulances at most accident-prone zones across India and promoting first responding training among corporates. She has been awarded as Gujarat's Woman Leader by Gujarat Brand Leadership Awards by CMO Asia in November 2020. She has also achieved Woman of Worth Award in the 8th edition of World Women Leadership Congress 2021 by CMO Global in February 2021. I welcome you, Poonam, and invite you to start the next session.
Thank you, Sheetal, and I hope I have not taken so much of your time in reading out such a long intro. Although I'm so nervous today having all of you on board, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful session for all these 2 days. I would like to welcome my panelists. I would like to welcome Charvi. Hi, Charvi, how are you today? And I would also like to welcome Pratibha. Pratibha, we have you here, right? Hi, Pratibha. So we have two lovely ladies here. I can see their pretty faces and those electrifying smiles that I am sure it will enrich our sessions equally. Let me start with our session by a couple of things that I would want to put forward before I start. Boundary setting and work-life balance. So boundary and balance, aren't these the two words imbibed in us as women and was much more in our mothers? Today, as we discuss both these two very important B's of any woman's life, I want to quote two very important quotes, one from Indian mythology and one of a US designer. Nari tu Narayani means a woman, you are the ultimate. And Coco Chanel says a girl should be two things, who and what she wants. Who and what she wants, a journey from what she wants to the ultimate is probably the journey of boundary and balance that we discussed today. Boundary setting and work-life balance. With these words, I would like to introduce our fabulous women panelists today, Ms. Charvi Jain and Ms. Pratibha Priyadarshini. Ms. Chari Jain is a psychologist, psychotherapist, and an entrepreneur and alumni of Delhi University and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. She's a certified cognitive behavior therapy and EMDR of the most forthcoming psychotherapies. While in Mumbai, she has a varied experience working in diverse settings such as Tata Memorial Hospital, Family Court Bandra, and Manav Seva Sangh, an old age home at Sion Hospital, a government hospital. On shifting to Kolkata about 7 years ago, she started a one of its kind psychological wellness center Over a Cup of Tea, a great enduring name for sure, that has been pivotal in changing the way therapy is looked at in the city. Within 5 years of establishment, Over a Cup of Tea has become a renowned name of therapy in India. In addition, her organization Over a Cup of Tea is partners with eminent organizations such as the Live, Love, Laugh Foundation, Deepika Padukone's initiative, Vicky's National Mental Health Council, to name a few. She, along with her team, regularly conducts awareness campaigns and workshops across schools, colleges, corporates, and other social organizations. Additionally, she also runs support groups for different age groups and populations. Charvi, as a psychologist, has brought a difference in the lives of over 20,000 individuals, adolescents, students, working professionals, homemakers, the young and old. Contributions in the pandemic. In last couple of months during pandemic COVID-19, Charvi and her team switched to providing the services via online mode. They have so far brought a positive difference in the lives of over 15,000 individuals through one-on-one sessions, workshops, and webinars. Commendable, and I welcome you, Ms. Charvi. Let me also introduce our second panelist for the day, Ms. Pratibha Priyadarshini. Pratibha Priyadarshini heads the human resource function for Shell India Businesses, a senior generalist HR manager with a proven track record of partnering with business in multicultural, multi-location contexts. She manages the HR functions of Shell multi-sector businesses in India with up to 10,000 employees. As a director of Shell India companies, she supports HR operations for a country through a large matrix of HR functions and staff over 140 plus. She's passionate about talent development, senior succession planning, inclusion and diversity, and developing workplaces with high engagement indexes. As Shell repurposes itself, India's strategic importance in delivering Shell's ambitious climate change goals means ambitious people strategies for developing, skilling, and nurturing talent in India. Having lived 8 years in the UK and more recently completing a 5-year assignment as a global HR business partner, Shell's finance operations in Krakow, Manila, Kuala Lumpur, and Chennai, Pratibha brings strong international experience spanning Europe and India. She's an alumni of London School of Economics and holds a bachelor's in engineering from the National Institute of Surat, India. Applauds, Pratibha. It's an impressive profile. With that, I would like to start with my first question, which would for both of you. How do you strike a balance between your personal and professional lives? I would like to know from you, Charvi, first, and then we go with Pratibha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Poonam, for that kind introduction. It's really an honor for me to be a part of this forum amongst all of you amazing, wonderful entrepreneurs, and in your respective fields, how well you all are doing as women. And I feel really proud to be here, honestly. But yeah, I think when it comes to the topic today, work-life balance and boundary setting, I think as a psychologist, as an entrepreneur, and as a mother of a toddler, I often get asked this question that how do you really balance it all? And I think most people imagine that I'm probably very good at multitasking. But to be honest, I think it's the opposite of that. I think what really helps me to keep up with all different aspects of my life is actually focusing on one single task at one point of time. So what I really do is I have my day divided into different segments. So there's a segment for work, there's a segment for family, and that is also further subdivided, because my work would be my role as a therapist or my role as an entrepreneur and things like that. I do the same for the family as well. And that really helps me, like focusing on that just one single aspect really helps me to be more productive in that. And I remember that especially helped me when I had just, after I've given birth to my child and I wanted to get back to work. And I remember whenever I would whenever I would take time off for work, it would come with so much of guilt. I would feel like I was abandoning my baby, So it was like a mess at that point of time. While I was at work, I was thinking about my child. When I was with my child, I would think about all the things that I need to do. So that's when what really came in handy was compartmentalization. And when I started to do that, automatically I realized that I would be unapologetic about, I knew because this was my time for work. So no matter whether I had calls scheduled or not, it would be like I would keep that time for work. And I would do the same when I was with my child, no matter how urgent a work thing or a deadline would be, my time with her would be my time with her. And that was a game changer for me. And I realized that the same thing sort of reiterates when it comes to neurosciences, because when it comes to our brain, it is impossible for us to focus on two different tasks at one particular point of time. Our attention span is limited. So when we try to do that, automatically our productivity reduces. So I think for me, just compartmentalizing and focusing on one task has been the key.
That's great. I think you endorse what we all go through. Thank you. Thank you, Charvi. Pratibha, we would like to hear from you too.
Thank you. Poonam, when I was listening to your introduction of me, I was thinking, gosh, such a lot of jargon. I need to go back to that LinkedIn profile and change many of these things. And then for all of the stuff that you read about Charvi and cup of tea, and it had such a soothing feel to it. And then, of course, when my introduction came, it seemed like it was like a boom, 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 boom set of bomb bullets that were going through. So I had to say, very impressive. And I'm so glad that I'm part of this evening and nice to be amongst people. Asha in Shell, of course, is a very big CII participant. And I must thank Asha for relentlessly pursuing the CII agenda and getting us to really participate and listen. Otherwise, I would have never really been able to meet wonderful people like this. I'm going to be a little different. What this work-life balance thing did to me, right? And Charvi, you'll understand it from being a psychologist. I have a heavy action bias. And we can sort of blame it on the way we've all sort of been brought up in the Indian environment. It's all about not wasting time. Every minute should be about directing to something useful. And therefore, we've sort of become these constantly acting and therefore not wasting time and therefore fulfilling this amazing prophecy of big benchmarks about who we are, right? And I was no different than all of that. And work and life, and what do you mean balance? Work is balance, right? There's nothing about life. That was the way I led life for a long time until, of course, I had my son and we were in the UK then. And then there was this boy that was growing up and it all seemed to be happening in a haze when I think about it. But over time, I think I've just made peace. And I did see, I actually saw a therapist to just understand how do I make decisions? How do I, who am I? How do I lead life? And one of the few things that I really made peace with is I'm happiest when I am in that action mode. There is a side to me that will always be acting, whether I accept it or not, and towards making meaning of it, right? And going from there through to then a very important question that the therapist asked me, saying, fine, you come back at 3:30 in the afternoon, and there you are sitting in front of your boy. What do you do after that? It was, no, I just wanted to be there. I can continue my work calls, but I'm at home, right? And that's where your own compartmentalizing point came in, about being mindful, about, you want to be in both places at the same time, but where are you? And trying to sort of revisit some of those questions, accepting the fact that I have this heavy action bias. And finally, there was it's a very bad joke, but of course, one of my friends in London Business School, when I was doing my post-graduation there, said, I love my mum for the dosa she gave me, but if she was able to pay my MBA fees, I would have been happier. And then I thought, great, if it keeps me in the workplace, I can continue to sort of think about the MBA fees that I will pay. This is one way I can just tell myself I'm heading towards a way of trying to contribute to my son's life, whether now or in the future, whether through time or through a way that makes meaningful sense. So I guess that's the way I've sort of led and managed those boundaries each time when it comes back, on whether I am happy first with my action biases. Am I doing the quality time and space when I am with him? And finally, ultimately, I know I will sort of be contributing to his life in a different and an impactful way too, continuing to earn and do what I do and enjoy what I do. So yeah, slightly sort of different and a bit of an alpha take on it, I think, but accepting who I am is the first of that journey.
That's great. I think, Pratibha, I think you've put it most aptly. And I guess you have not polished the words that should come from a working mom, and about balancing the work life. And how do we do that? We have our share of guilt. We have our share of being proud, being a working mom. When I asked my 10-year-old that, would you like your mom to be staying at home, or would you like your mom to be going to work? And she's like, okay, best of both worlds is something I would like. I would want you to be around me whenever I want, but I would also want you to work. And I think the last 6 days that we are into quarantine, both of us, so it has been the best time that we are spending together. So I loved hearing both of you on to how you both balance your work. And I think Charvi has given us the best compartmentalization advice. That's the only key, I believe. Taking the discussions forward, I would both want to know your professional journeys during the COVID times, particularly Pratibha. I would like to know from you that you're working with over 10,000 employees at Shell. What were the challenges you faced as HR during COVID? I think HR had the most inevitable part to play during COVID times, balancing between the management and the employees. And what was the mind space about work from home? Was it a curse? Was it a boon? How did you deal with the COVID situation during HR situation during COVID?
Thanks for that, Charvi. So I think the other thing that also happened, and Asha knows this, of course, and they were incredibly stressful times for us, is we hadn't planned for COVID when Shell decided to repurpose. So we had the biggest reorganization, global reorganization in the company, which meant that people were actually reapplying for their jobs. There was no guarantee of the jobs they kept. Globally, we lost many jobs. India was in a fortunate space because we grew, but even that wasn't a given because we all had to sort of come back and understand whether we get our own jobs back. So here was the pandemic going on the outside. There was also personal strife on where's my future headed? Am I going to get a job back in Shell? And there was just such a lot of mental fatigue in the company and amongst the people. The good thing about Shell, again, is it's a company where HR has a very much a seat at the table as an equal. So if I'm talking to my country management team or my colleagues, it's very much a what are you going to do to help with this problem? And it's not mine, because the minute it comes to pay, it becomes an HR problem. The minute it comes to leave and policies, it's sort of almost dumbed down to, can we just do the checklists, right? But no, I mean, we're also sort of thinking business partners that are trying to solve a complex problem together. And one of employee morale, resilience, mental health is a very complex subject. And I think one of the first things that I did with my team and my predecessor had done was to make it a joint responsibility, that this is not something that HR solves for you, but it's something where there are three parties: your line manager, representative of the business, HR from what can we do in terms of getting you a conducive ecosystem, and the employees themselves in being able to speak their mind, come in openly with what they wanted as help and support. So that was the first mindset point. The second point really was to acknowledge, in all honesty, that there are things you can help and there are things you can't help. And that's been the tougher one, right? Because the company, again, decided not to give pay hikes and bonuses this year. So none of us got any hikes. We also didn't get any bonuses. And it has been financially difficult for people because of 100 other things that are also happening in their own environment. But what we then decided to do was, of course, as a company, decide to pitch in additional insurance support, corporate buffer support when things went to really sort of back to worse. Stuff that every other company did on oxygen concentrators, vaccinations, pulled in a whole pandemic support around it. But I'm not going to go into that sort of detail. It is really around, therefore, the auxiliary support that came in when something as basic as pay and hikes weren't there, right? And it meant that you kept a channel open to constantly keep showing the mirror, because it's so easy for people to just say, I didn't get a pay, I didn't get a bonus. You got one arbitrary company that just decides to work from home completely, they will remember that. And one other company that decides to give hikes, they will remember only that. So it's all about honest speak. So throughout this time, it was again honest channel speak on here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing what we're doing. Think about it. If you want to be permanently working from home, would you let your child permanently school from home? And do you think that's healthy? Do you think that's a balance you want to go towards? And if it's about, I didn't get my money, and then you basically say, do you turn up to just earn only money, or do you do other things in a company? Are there other elements of the EVP? So honest conversations, joint responsibility, and then doing the standard round of what else you can offer is support, and therefore offering robust sort of frameworks and support around it were the three things really that we sort of did. Personally, what did that mean for me and my team? Endless hours of hard work. Shell is an extreme process-oriented company. We don't do anything simply. We don't do anything with ease. And CI is a difficult one, and I'll be honest with you on that. So it just meant that we had extremely late hours. People were tired, fatigued, unhappy, and surrounded, especially the voluntary groups, in a very unhappy way. And the only thing that I could do with my team is to just say, ask for whatever else you need. You're not in the mood to work today? Don't. You don't want to come back into work tomorrow? Don't. EAP support, big one, where we've got a lot of helpline and counselors to just be available, to say, I'm not okay, to just be much more nurturing, much more reward oriented, patting on the back. Long-winded, but it's what you would do at home, right? You wake up in the morning feeling low. So in the afternoon, you feel a little better. You want to get distracted with something. In the evening, again, you're sort of tanked. So we went through exactly that cycle, but knowing that we were talking to each other, going through those cycles and being there for each other is the only way we sort of got by. We didn't get on with it, but we just got by with it.
That's been a tremendous journey, Pratibha, and it is commendable. I think the Shell philosophy, I have also read Asha's interviews ahead. I think it's phenomenal. And I think you guys have done a great job at Shell by understanding the exact mindset of people. When we talk about mindsets, we would also like to hear from Charvi. Charvi, how people have approached you during COVID times, women entrepreneurs or women professionals, particularly managing work, managing home, managing work from home, managing children studying from home. How have they come to you to understand how to strike a balance?
Yeah, I think with the onset of pandemic and work from home, I think the boundaries of work and home has never been more blurred, right? So with that blurring, and of course with the whole anxiety of the pandemic, the uncertainty, it has definitely been a really, really hard time. And I've seen a surge of, increase in clientele because of that. Of course, it has been a hard time mentally for everybody else. But of course, when it comes to women especially, there's also this component of the mental load, which we don't really talk about often, which almost is invisible, which is, like even in the most progressive of families where couples, divide their work almost equally, their chores equally. But even then there is, usually one person who is doing all the planning and thinking work, right? And that is what we call as the mental load. And this essentially means not physically doing the task. Maybe somebody else is doing the task, but to remember what needs to be done, who needs to do it, and to ensure that it is done, that itself is a huge task in itself. Like we call it a full-time work of a manager, right? So women, and more often than not in our Indian society, this work actually falls on women. And so with the pandemic, being at home, not having, clear lines of when does your work start and when does it end, and, constantly getting interrupted, from your children, from your maybe in-laws if you're living with them, so it has been an incredibly hard time. So I think what has helped, my clients, or what I have really advocated on is, in these times, I think self-compassion. And I think what, Pratibha talked about, that action bias, that is so relatable, and that is something which even in the millennials, that is something that is constantly there. It's like your worth is defined by your productivity. And that can be a very difficult, because and in that point of time, if you're not being as productive as you usually were, automatically your self-worth dips down. And imagine how hard it can be to live with yourself and thinking that you're not worthy enough, your day has not been worthy enough, right? So I think constantly reminding ourselves that we are so much more than our accomplishments or our productivity, right? Our individuality is a lot more than that, has been something that I've been trying to, advocate for and inculcate. But of course, it's been a really, really hard time, despite the advantages of working from home. I think given a choice, most of the women professionals, entrepreneurs I have met, I think they would always choose having a physical office away from their homes.
That's great, Chavi. I think you're right, because to strike that balance is very, very difficult. And during COVID times, I'm sure I would have always preferred going to my workplace, work in my corner, my peaceful corner, versus being at home managing 100 different things and also trying to work. So I'm sure as a psychologist, you must have given the correct advices. But Chavi, I would also like to know from you, pre and post COVID, what is the scenario of women their understanding and their awareness about mental health? So not only COVID times, even pre-COVID times or post-COVID times or no COVID times, women have always ignored their mental health. So as a psychotherapist, as a psychologist, how do you see that India has changed on the awareness about mental health among women?
Yeah, I think when it comes to mental health, post-COVID times, I mean, there has been a huge change from what I have seen. I remember back when I had just started out about 8 years ago. I remember, when I used to explain what I do, like just merely saying I'm a psychologist or a therapist wouldn't ring a bell. I literally had to use references from Bollywood movies like Dear Zindagi, to explain what I really do. So, that was where we were, I believe, when the concept of mental health itself was not something that existed. Like people did not know what mental health was. To now, at a time when I believe that at least people have started acknowledging what mental health is. And luckily, because of a lot of awareness during the COVID times, I think a lot of media also focused on mental health. There were also some unfortunate incidences, with Sushant Singh Rajput passing away. Because of all of that, a lot of different awareness. I think that was a silver lining that came about from there, from COVID, was that people started giving, at least acknowledging what mental health is. And even I see a shift in the way and when people approach for help. So, I mean, back then people would come to me only when they have hit rock bottom, when there was a crisis, when they have tried every single possible thing and nothing has worked. And then finally, and even when they would come, there would be a lot of hush hush about it. They would either lie to their families or hide about where they are going, right? Versus now where people openly say that they are going to a therapist. And I see that as a huge progress. And now people look at therapy not as something they would go to when they have a crisis, but they look at therapy as self-care. They look at therapy as some like a preventative measure. They look at therapy as something that they deserve rather than something they need to go to when they need to fix themselves. So yeah, definitely, we have definitely progressed a lot as a community, as a society. But of course, still a lot of stigma exists. While we acknowledge mental health, I still believe that equal importance is not given to mental health. So hopefully we'll reach there. I mean, I'm quite hopeful as we become more aware. I guess we'll reach there very soon.
Yes, you're right, Chavi. I think we are gradually reaching there. And I think psychologists, psychotherapists like you are playing a phenomenal role in spreading this awareness. I could see how many programs you've done. So thank you very much, Charvi. And as we have some paucity of time, Pratibha, can I know from you that how do you advise people at Shell, your people at Shell, to balance their mental health and physical health? What are the steps that you take as an HR that you maintain that balance in amongst your employees?
I think we take that very seriously, Poonam, because we've got a whole space around saying a campaign that says, I'm okay, you're okay. So which is the whole space of acknowledging that I'm okay to say that I'm not okay. Yeah. And that started almost a year and a half ago, even before COVID actually came in. So mental health and resilience is a very big space. Of course, because of COVID, we've sort of increased it. So one of the first things we do, and when Charvi was speaking, I was thinking, quality like Charvi is not available to everybody. Yeah, it's starts with affordability. It starts with access, knowledge about what cognitive behavioral therapy even means, right? And then what's the difference? Many people say, are you going to a psychiatrist? No, there's a very big difference between therapy, psychiatry, psychology, and the nuances, right? So knowledge, affordability, that's one of the first places we play in Shell. Through our EAP program and through our EAP network, we do try and bridge that gap around affordability and knowledge gaps by tying up with some fantastic partners so that people have the ability to access them as and when. And it's 24/7 and we pay for all of that. So that's not at all an issue. The second thing that we also do is that we've got a lot of engagement programs that range from yoga through to podcasts, through to speakers that actually come in on a regular basis to be able to talk about mental health. The third element of it is that we have a big leadership framework called psychological safety. And we reinforce psychological safety as a way in which teams need to run and speak to each other. And that is brought in either through our leadership programs, either through our team effectiveness programs, or on its own. Safety Day, we had a recent safety day, which is all about fire and safety and drills and all of that. But we brought back in psychological safety as a very important element of mental well-being, safety, the ability to speak up, and therefore to be expressing yourselves. And then last but not the least, whenever we do staff town halls, whenever we do any big HR cafes, which keep happening at multiple standpoints, we always reiterate all of these programs and offers that are on the table and keep inviting staff to come up with additional ideas if there are any. The Shell People Survey also sort of tracks mental health and resilience, and then managers are rated in terms of their team's health and resilience in the way it comes back in through the People Survey. So yeah, going to keep it really short. I know we're 3 minutes over.
That's brilliant, Pratibha. I think I just want to go on listening to you because I think you guys are doing a great job. When you talk about psychological safety, I have been introduced to this concept only today by you. And thank you very much for that. And I know that we are 3 minutes above, but I would request that whenever we get an opportunity, we get a longer session with both of you to know you each other, to know you both much more better than what we could do it with a limited amount of time today. So just wanted to close our panel discussion with an appeal that to all the women leaders out there, we all have faced various challenges at home and workplace being women. We were and we will overcome the situation for sure. But let's rise together, as our concept says today, rising together. Let's uplift the disabled, both mental and physical, the transgenders, the LGBTQ community, promote inclusive home and workplace. Let's rise again. Thank you very much, ladies, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam. Thank you, Charvi, and thank you, Pratibha. It was definitely a very interesting and engaging session. May I request Asha to take over?
lovely hearing you, Pratibha, and especially proud because, I sort of endorse everything that Shell does, and we're fantastic at psychological safety and boundary setting, and Charvi as well. Charvi, by the way, is my therapist. So thank you both of you for joining the session. So today I really want to sort of thank everybody involved in the initiative. I would like to thank all of our esteemed speakers for being here with us, sharing their insights. I really thoroughly enjoyed the personal branding session about creating an aura, but also kind of doing some soul searching before you actually know what to put out there. There was also this comment around how personal branding is very akin to product branding, and I've never really thought about it like that. The second session on entrepreneurship was eye-opening. I think what is really interesting for me is Suta being such a big brand with such a massive supply chain base is completely bootstrapped, and that is possible. We have Ipshita, who actually has thousands of women mentoring and also providing specific services to entrepreneurs. So I do hope people who are listening and our members are able to take her services, and her initiative is called Engendered, to just remind you. And then there was, of course, Vasudha, who talked about investment banking, but she specifically works in the EV space, but I'm sure we have others as well. Really great conversations there. And thank you so much. Finally, Pratibha and Charvi, you spoke about boundary setting and work-life balance. And I think for women specifically, where the data says women spend 300 minutes a day on unpaid care work and men spend 50 minutes a day on unpaid care work. And it's exploded exponentially after the pandemic, with not enough boundary setting between home and work. I really enjoyed your session, and I think key takeaways is what Charvi talked about, being not multitasking, single tasking. I think we all have the productivity bias. If you read all of the Medium articles, it's all about how to be more productive and sort of not saying it's okay to not be as productive. And what Pratibha says, to be able to openly say you're not okay. There are going to be days when you're not going to be okay, and that's okay as well. And I also liked what you talked about, the action bias, but also being the alpha. I remember my husband once telling me about mom guilt, and he sent me this article around, it was HBR that talked about be the dad. Apparently dads don't get dad guilt. They're fully present at work, and then when they come home, they're the dads, and they don't think about work. We should get better at sort of managing our guilt, and I thought I sort of took that away from you as well, Pratibha. So thanks ever so much. We at CII Iwin are honored to have you all on board with us for the summit. I thank you all, our sponsors, Kantar, Global Victoria, Blue Star Limited, Consulate General of Sweden in Mumbai, LIC of India, IKEA India for supporting the WomeNation Summit, and Moms of India as our streaming partner. I would also like to thank all the participants. Without you, the summit would not have been possible. Thank you so much for everyone at CII, especially Sampada, Amrita, Anand. The amount of hours and coordination you guys have put in has been amazing, and thanks ever so much. And this has been such a smoothly organized event, just because you guys sort of worked this in the back end so beautifully. I would actually like to end by saying, one thing. I hope this conference has given you key takeaways, and it's for all of us to go onward and upward, and leaving you with, she believed, she could, so she did. Yeah. So have a good evening, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you again the next year. Thanks ever so much. Bye.
Thank you, Asha.
Thank you. Thank you, Asha. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.